Giselle Loisbane was accused of being a witch. The man shouted that she should be punished, but the lady merely smiled and asked if her opponent had brought poison. Then the girl asked to try to kill her. And besides, don't be selfish. She grabbed the poison and started drinking. The stranger had heard that Giselle was crazy, and today he was convinced it was true. After drinking the poison, the blonde reported that it tasted like strawberry. One eye fell out in horror, because they told her that one drop of this poison would send anyone to hell. It was strange that it didn't work. Deciding he had made a mistake, the man tried to put a drop on his tongue, but this did not end successfully, so blood began to flow like a fountain from behind the fool's mouth. Finally, the boy asked how the witch did it. Giselle Loisbane, that's her name, the villain of the novel, The Poisoned Apple. The girl read this novel only because it was for work. A work about the other world, where the main characters die in the end. The secondary villain hero dies first. She was defeated by the protagonist, her death being poisoned by the assassin before being hanged. And on the way home after work, the girl had an accident and she herself became this villain. When she woke up, she was already behind bars, where the assassin arrived to poison her. But unfortunately, her poison simply didn't work on the heroine, and the assassin died in a very stupid way. After that situation, assassins came to her many more times, but her poison still had no effect on the villain. The assassins in this world were very stupid, because time and again, they decided to test the poison on themselves. At first, the girl was very hesitant, reluctant to drink the strange liquids. But then I got used to it, and so that no one would force me, I drank without any problems. As she continued drinking them, the lady realized that they also had different tastes. At first, the soldiers thought Giselle had killed these assassins, calling her a witch. But upon realizing that the assassins themselves drank the poison, they simply left her behind. The blonde initially thought that so many assassins were sneaking up because of poor security. But then it turned out they had simply been bribed. To the lady, this world was disgusting, because the most offensive thing was that she had become a villain. All that was left was to sit in prison and await her death. She already expected the next assassin to bring a poison that would definitely affect her. But suddenly, while thinking about this, laughter was heard from nowhere. The witch thought it was a side effect of the poisons. The girl started shouting that there might be ghosts here, to which the man replied that this was not the case at all. Seeing this, the blonde asked to wait a moment, because she had recently drunk poison. But he said there wasn't much, so drinking wouldn't be an obstacle. There was no point in rushing, because it wouldn't work anyway. So the lady got angry and shouted that he had to wait. But the smell of this liquid emanated terribly. It seems it had spoiled, or the death of the blue-eyed one was already here. The witch wondered if she hadn't died from the poisons all this time, and if there was a possibility that she wouldn't die from them. But still, if the poison doesn't work, then only the gallows await Giselle. And she will die here anyway, but this was clearly not what she wanted. Realizing that this assassin had some skills, the lady asked him to drink it. But he would do her a favor. The girl set the condition that if she didn't die, that guy would save her. It was impossible to just sit and wait for death, so she would think about the future. But first, she had to get out of the dungeon. So the man asked her if she would survive if she got out of here. Everyone knows her as a witch, and if the lady escapes, they will look for her. Especially since she has no family, no one will help her. The assassin suggested if it would be easier to die here. But the lady said there was no need to escalate it, because even though she is a witch, she is not the only villain in this world. Giselle said that if some people think the blonde is an evil witch, then she needs to live up to the villain's status. But in response to her words, he just smiled and said that if he were interested in it, he would say so. She tried to remember the assassin's name and called him Wayne. But suddenly, the man asked if the prisoner knew him. His voice changed, and he himself declared that he would help the lady die. The girl noticed that he had the keys to the cage. He took the dagger and brandished it, saying that this witch was an enemy of his girlfriend, so she must suffer a painful death. The blonde decided to flee, because otherwise she would definitely die. Realizing that dying by a dagger would be more painful than by poison, she started drinking what they gave her. Giselle started screaming, shrieking, that she was drinking poison and that the assassin could act. The lady had hope, because the man promised to help her if she didn't die. The mage claimed he didn't promise anything, but said he would think about it. A kind of black magic began to take over the maniac's body, and he immediately reported that it was interesting. The assassin disappeared, and the lady was surprised to see magic. The assassin mage appeared right in front of her, awkwardly scratching the back of his neck. He smiled and said he was a mercenary. It was strange that he suddenly decided to show her his face. The witch couldn't help but notice that her assassin was very handsome. The man bowed, knelt down, and then said he was very pleased to meet her. He took the bottle to look, and the lady already realized that he was just as stupid, that he probably wanted to test the poison on himself. But the assassin said he was sure the poison was working. The blonde was glad that there was finally an assassin who knew that the poison was real. But it didn't matter, because the mercenary offered to escape. A magic circle appeared around the mages. But when Giselle thought about the fact that he was an assassin, it became clear that they didn't even know him. She realized that this was the mage Wayne, because in the novel, this man knew how to do magic. Suddenly, they teleported somewhere, and the man asked the girl if she knew where they were. The blue-eyed girl said that escaping so easily with magic was possible. It was very disappointing. Faced with this insolence, the mage asked if he should return the girl to prison, to which she replied that it was not worth it. In any case, Giselle is a witch who escaped using black magic. If she is caught, she will be executed immediately in front of everyone. The villains in the novel actually used black magic, and she was freed with the help of this magic. The last mage, Wayne Eyre, possessed this magic. In the novel, he gathered all the mages and confronted the main character. Black Mist is an organization of dark mages led by Wayne, referred to as listening dark clouds at the beginning of the novel. Having guessed, the girl asked if the man was one of Wayne's henchmen. The lady began to get nervous because she had spoken very disrespectfully to Wayne's subordinate. She asked what the mage's name was, to which he replied that his name was Ranji. But the blonde couldn't remember that name in the novel. The girl tried with all her might to remember by his external features if such a character existed in the novel. He looked more handsome in the dungeon and should clearly stand out in a crowd. Although all the mages in the Dark Fog organization were notable characters, Giselle also met one of them at that time. Maybe Renji wasn't mentioned there at that time. The lady assumed that the man helped her on her master's orders, to which he replied that the boss wouldn't find out. The mage suggested not stopping in this place, as there was a nearby tower where Giselle was imprisoned. Soon, they would go looking for the fugitive witch. The blonde was scared, because they were really next to the prison tower. The criminal looked at her, and then suggested they take a walk somewhere. In fact, he understood that if he left her alone, she would be caught instantly, and now more than ever he needed her help. So, the man asked what would help him in return. But suddenly, shouts were heard that the witch had disappeared, and the search for Giselle finally began. Renji said it would be better to wait until a decent price was set for the blonde's head, to which she shouted that she would give him information. This was valuable, because the girl was offering him information that would help him improve. Giselle said she knows the future of some people in his organization. The lady remembered the plot of the novel, which is why this future is happening now. For example, the blonde knew who would become their future leader. But the man doubted that he could be bribed with this. But the witch reported that she drank a lot of poison. But she was still alive and received magical powers. He had never heard that magic could be obtained from poison. But the girl assured him that she had supernatural powers. She tried to explain that she knew more information than anyone here. In an instant, the guards ran around the corner looking for the fugitive woman. But the mercenary instantly covered her with his body. She made puppy dog eyes and asked if the rescuer would leave her here. But the man declared threateningly that before his ban, he used forbidden magic. He sacrificed a man who worked with him. Black magic has its own rules, and they are different for everyone. And Renji is the man who died because of Giselle's deceit and came for her. He came to test his strength with a girl. He needed to know if she was interested in the poison she had recently drunk. The man approached, which made the lady feel bad, and he started saying something about a shooting star. He wanted to summon a creature not of this world, but the investigation had not been completed, and he hadn't decided to take a big risk yet. The mage took the girl by both hands and asked who she was. But if you think about it carefully and draw a conclusion from his words, the girl was called to this world thanks to Giselle. And Renji, they need to carefully choose who is better to call to this world. And they chose her, tired, tortured, having nothing to do with it. Red Eyes asked if she was really equipped with that information, and how many important people would remain in the future. But she could only say for sure that in the future, she herself would remain. The mercenary assumed that the girl wanted to make a deal with him. He assumed that the blonde wanted to hear it from him. He also suggested that he could somehow get this information from Giselle. The man asked if the blue-eyed one knew the dungeon that the mages had built. Giselle suggested that if he were a professional mage, he would have read all her thoughts a long time ago. The girl said she just wanted to save her life and asked to end on a peaceful note. The mercenary said that this girl was definitely not Giselle, because the real one wouldn't be so vague. The brown-haired man said that the witch must answer how she can be useful. Otherwise, he will simply hand her over for money. He said that all she could do was determine the taste of the poison. The man mockingly asked what was useful about that. Then, the lady hinted that if the head was poisoned, then she could become his taster of various poisons. Let's start with the main thing. Renji decided not to abandon the girl, not to kill her, and not to sell her to the soldiers. And Giselle became an employee of a magic shop. On one of the shelves, the lady noticed some kind of doll that was clearly cursed. It was a shop that didn't sell magical things, but cursed ones. The blonde asked why he needed this place. She suggested that if the poison didn't affect her, then he decided to curse her, to which he explained that only things were cursed there, and that the place itself was absolutely clean. And to be honest, the mage doesn't trust the witch, so he first needs to prove her loyalty. Her job here is to distinguish between different types of poisons, as well as serve customers. The girl's task is to drink and taste poisons. To the lady, the mage was a terrible person, because why would she need a career that starts from the bottom? 10 days have passed since she became a saleswoman. At first, Renji watched the girl, but after 3 days, she no longer saw him. But suddenly, he asked if Giselle had given a name to the cursed doll. A guy named Ten said that the saleswoman was really strange. He was a delivery man for goods in a shop, and also worked part-time in various places. From sorcerer, he wants to become a full-fledged mage. The blonde said she wasn't crazy at all, to which they told her that the insane themselves don't know they are crazy. To him, Giselle was an incredible girl, because she became a saleswoman in a cursed place. Renji's shop doesn't seem to have a bad reputation. Ten said he would leave his things here, to which the lady replied that this is a shop. But things are only brought here. There were many visitors, but no one bought anything. Sometimes they seem to want to buy something, but they refuse. In fact, they just give away poison, which, by the way, smelled terrible. The girl immediately determined what the poison was made of, what it tasted and smelled like. People were very surprised, because to them, this liquid had no smell. So, Giselle realized that only she could distinguish the smells and taste of the poison. Renji also said something similar, that no one smells poison except her. Ten continued to say that there was nothing left to surprise the crazy blonde, to which she didn't even want to answer him. It was strange that the witch again didn't see the mage, because she hadn't heard from him for 3 full days. She suddenly realized that this was her ideal opportunity to escape. She understood that if she stayed here, she would become a lab rat. And if the lady was now alive and had a chance to survive, Giselle decided to take some poison as a salary for 10 full days of work. And now, the time has come when the witch planned to start her escape. Upon leaving, the lady hoped that no confinement magic would be cast here, and she could escape without anyone noticing. One way or another, she succeeded. The blonde thought that one of the buyers was talking about some kind of carriage. But suddenly, the witch saw a group of guards in front of her and was bewildered. She was surprised that there were too many. The main problem was that Giselle's pictures were hanging everywhere, by which she could be easily recognized. She was surprised that her shop was located next to the soldier's post. But suddenly, Renji appears behind the girl, whispering softly in her ear why she is standing here. The boy said that if you move a little further, the soldiers will be happy to accept you. The lady made a stupid grimace, saying that they hadn't seen the gentleman for a long time. But he reminded her that only 3 days had passed. The beauty said she would immediately explain the misunderstanding, saying she wasn't going to run away. Then, the red-eyed one asked if the lady had decided to surrender or delay her death on the gallows, to which she replied that it wasn't like that, because she just wanted to take a walk. She said she was used to walking 10,000 steps a day, and that her body was getting healthier. Then the demon started strangling her because the girl carried poison with her, apparently to quench her thirst. The girl assumed that the mage found out about this with the help of his skills. The blonde said that if she drinks a little poison, the desire to work only increases significantly. But he didn't give in and asked if it was necessary to carry money for the walk. But even here, Giselle got away with it and said that on the way back she wanted to buy a gift for the mage. Renji was indignant because now the lady calls him master, but in prison she called him a terrible person. In an instant, the blonde noticed that the guards were walking in her direction, which made her very cautious. She took a piece of cloth from the master's cloak and covered her face, saying she was trying to hide from the soldiers. In an instant, the girl pulled him towards her and asked him to pretend that the man was kissing her to completely cover her identity. She explained this request by saying that if they ran away, it would be suspicious, and if they pretended to be lovers, it would distract the soldiers. But the man smiled, knowing that in such a situation, lovers kiss in an alley. But the blonde was very confused when the man abruptly pressed her against the wall. He leaned in front of her, smiling maliciously, embarrassing the lady. He asked her what happened to her face, because she herself suggested pretending to be lovers. The lady started murmuring something when she suddenly noticed that one of the guards was looking at her. She got very scared and started thinking that the soldier had noticed her and recognized her. Giselle started getting angry because the mage had pressed her against the wall. He needed to hug her tighter and at least bend down to give her a fake kiss. But in a moment, the blonde was able to relax because the guard passed by her, apparently without recognizing her. The girl couldn't understand why they weren't tied up, to which the boy replied that people couldn't see them. He started walking to one side, which worried the lady even more than being seen. He walked to a certain place and said that for the guards, this alley looks like an ordinary wall, because an illusion spell was cast in this place. In the novel, it was said that where magic was used, a magic circle remained, and black magic leaves dark traces. This is how the main characters located Wayne, and in the climax, they defeated him. The blue-eyed woman wondered if her memory was failing her. She asked if it was magic, and then why the soldiers noticed nothing. To this, the dark mage said that it happened by itself because he is much stronger. The man said that Giselle looked so funny that he didn't consider it necessary to say it immediately. Then the girl concluded that it was really terrible. In this case, the mage suggested going to the shop and continuing there. But the lady really forgot that she wanted to escape and was caught in the end. She was embarrassed and angry because she didn't understand that this guy wanted to stay in the shop. Suddenly, the girl cautiously supposed that the gentleman planned to torture her. He sarcastically declared that if she didn't mind, he would give her that pleasure, although he could do it even here. The blonde said that a new poison had arrived, because she was a loyal employee who would immediately return to work on the new products that arrived. Renji smiled, thinking that this witch was really cute. She gave the owner a list of all the flavors and all the poisons she had checked. The table was very comfortable, so the man thought that if Vedro found out about such skills, he would immediately go to his shop. The blonde said that the poisons taste like fruit, but most likely he just wanted to test Giselle's skills. But the mage didn't want to receive work from her and listen to these incomprehensible words. He wondered what the hell had brought Giselle Loisbane there. With a little pain, it already hurts her. But at the same time, she is not afraid to drink poison. She doesn't want to put herself in danger, but she is ready to work with the villains. To Renji, the lady was of a very strange and contradictory nature, but it was interesting what kind of creature was inside this body. In an instant, Renji asked what Giselle's real name was, but she introduced herself exactly the same way. So the boy realized that she wasn't even going to talk about her true self. Suspiciously, blonde hair, light eyes, she is exactly Giselle Loisbane. But by her personality and way of speaking, she is a completely different person. And the biggest contradiction is that she demands from people. She doesn't even try to be like a real heroine. The girl didn't understand why the man didn't believe her, since she gave him an exact report on the poisons. She asked what the boy doubted, because she was a completely harmless person, but he said he didn't trust anyone, and besides, he saw the blonde trying to escape. Moreover, she also stole money, but the lady still tried to justify herself and make that story seem reliable. Giselle was indignant because the gentleman was not going to pay her for her work. She started shouting that she worked hard and that he should pay her for her work, especially when a person risks their life by drinking poison. The man thought the lady was very funny and amusing, although the real Giselle would never do such a thing. Mages buy chickens to test curses on them and then turn their room into a chicken coop because they are too cute to kill. And now, Renji partially understood them. The mage began to use his magic, creating a dark sphere. Seeing that Giselle might be in danger, she immediately began to apologize, saying that she had forgotten that she was on parole and that she would accept unpaid work because the master had given her shelter. But he replied that he didn't understand anything of what was said, when suddenly, beautiful butterflies with very beautiful wings began to fly from his hands, and of an incredible size. The girl really liked this trick and asked if they were real butterflies. To this, he replied that these were his relatives, as well as observers who would take care of Giselle. The girl asked if they could talk. The gentleman replied that these creatures only spoke to him. But the girl got angry and said that she also wanted to communicate with them. She began to examine the wings of these babies, also talking about them as creatures with very beautiful wing colors. The blonde looked at and especially touched the red butterflies, to which the man said that this species is poisonous, and the white ones could easily paralyze a person, but it was scary, because Giselle wouldn't die anyway. The mage, once again, looking at the blonde, was convinced that he found her very cute. Although a minute ago the lady was restless with excitement, now she looks very interested. He thought that Giselle also had another ability, that is, knowing the future of important people. It would be interesting whose future the lady knows, and by what criteria she determines important people. But suddenly, the gentleman asked what the lady knew about Wayne. He also wondered why Giselle wants to work for his boss. Having released all the butterflies, which the blonde was ready to squeeze to death, she said that Wayne is the strongest among all the villains. The witch also added that when the man meets the boss, he must tell him everything she said, and she would be very grateful if the mage helped her get a job with him. But the fact that the girl called his boss a villain goes without saying. The lady said she preferred the tail of a dragon to the head of a snake. It would be great to work for such a prestigious person. But the man remembered that the girl said she could help determine the poison for the chapter. But still, only Giselle distinguishes tastes, and therefore the question is how she can help fight poisons. To this, she suggested that she would taste all of his food before the meal. In other words, a food taster. It sounded strange, but the blonde asked the mage to arrange a meeting with the boss of Wayne Air. But to this strange and unusual request, the lady received a negative answer. He asked if the lady would be with him if he fed her, but she replied that she would only come to taste the poison. She will also take breaks for tea, eat dessert, and there will always be time for a snack. This meant that they would be together all day. Renji immediately declared that he was against her being with Wayne all day. He explained that the lady would also take care of the shop, and the salary would be in accordance with the work. But the girl will receive a salary when she becomes a permanent employee. Red Eye already wanted to leave, but Giselle tried to stop him. She approached him, and the man noticed that the girl's mood had changed. It seemed like she was plotting something because she was acting crazy and wanted to get close to Wayne to kill him. In this case, the blonde said that since ancient times, employment contracts were concluded between an employee and his boss, and then a law was passed on discrimination against women. The girl meant that the trial period and salary require a clear deadline. Hearing these words, the mage began to choke with laughter, saying that Giselle was the best thing he had ever met in his life. He concluded that this is why he needs to keep her close and watch her. As soon as Renji took in his pets, Giselle started seeing him less often. Thanks to him, she had more free time and occasionally had the opportunity to walk through some alleys. Of course, this is surveillance by the butterflies, but the blonde was not particularly against it, because these creatures are very beautiful. It was even convenient, because by walking with them, the girl makes it clear to the man that she will not run away. And again, Ten arrived at his shop, calling the lady Giselle crazy. He started talking about how now the girl is not a temporary worker, but an employee on probation, so she can be called an apprentice. He could say whatever he wanted, but the girl already has an official contract. After all, now everything is clearly defined. And now Renji will definitely not hand her over to the authorities or use her as material for research. This employment contract is proof that the witch will survive and have full immunity. Ten wanted to buy that cursed doll, to which the girl replied that he had better take it himself. The boy still looked completely green because he thought that if he touched the doll, he would immediately be cursed. The blonde explained that only items are sold here, but the place itself is not cursed. The lady was even sad that Isabel left, because without this doll, she felt very lonely. But suddenly, she remembered that she still had butterflies. No matter how much you look at them, these creatures are very beautiful. Then there was dark dust on the boss's fingertips. It was the same in prison, but they seemed to have a shine. Since Renji's appearance is so bright, then his strength should be bright. The following thoughts were interrupted by a new visitor who needed to say hello. But the stranger immediately started shouting, asking if she was the witch the gentleman had picked up. He started talking about how he forced the mage to take her and put her in this shop, to which the girl didn't understand at all what was happening. Red was already hysterical. shouting that this was impossible because this place was originally his. The boy asked where the gentleman was now because he needed to see him, but the lady replied that the boss does what he wants. And lately he has been very busy, so he must leave his contacts, and when he arrives, he will communicate. Ex-employee. But the boy said that no one would believe the suicidal attacker, that the ex-prisoner was not satisfied because she was not going to die yet. In an instant, Ten burst into the shop again, asking if everything was all right, because he heard a noise and thought something had happened. Seeing him, the redhead immediately ran out, declaring that he would return. The worker used to sit in an alley where a spell was cast, and from there she could watch people. But Giselle couldn't walk around the city because of the pictures she wanted, but she didn't want to stay in the shop all day either. The lady wondered for a second if it was okay to stay in the shop and work there. If you think that Giselle was a secondary character in the novel, if she stayed in the shop, she definitely wouldn't meet the main characters of the novel. Renji wouldn't introduce her to Wayne, so it's unlikely the lady would become a member of a dark organization. She was scared to know if it was safe for her to stay here, because if that guy came back, Giselle would ask the mage to find the same doll to scare away all the impure ones. But in an instant, the butterflies began to crawl insistently towards the lady. As if trying to say something, the girl had a theory that the pets were mating at that moment. She felt that the boys didn't like these words, so she realized it was better for her to leave. It was strange, because no one sees her in this alley. But suddenly, Giselle noticed that one of the soldiers, as if he had seen her, he was trying to approach. The blonde concluded from his appearance that he was the commander of all the soldiers. He was a rather handsome man, with blonde hair and very bright green eyes. Suddenly, the girl realized that this soldier looked like Dylan from the poisoned apple. She started thinking about what he was doing here, when in an instant their eyes met. Grabbing her chair, the witch started running. She realized that the illusion magic had no effect on him. Dylan saw everything, and no amount of magic will work on him. The blonde ran into the shop and closed the door. Everything was strange, because in the original, after Giselle's execution, the boy returns to his homeland. Everything turned out that the story was not following the original plot. But if the blonde catches the witch, she will surely kill her, and then she will definitely be executed. The lady covered her mouth with her hands and tried to tell the butterflies to call the gentleman. That said, Giselle heard a knock on the door. It sounded like someone was trying to open it. The sounds became more frequent, when suddenly, in a moment, she realized that the hero was gone. The gentleman will obviously not return until Giselle is dead. Most likely, he will spend his whole life looking for her in the plot. The blonde tried to push these thoughts away, because she was only a minor villain, so it was unlikely that he would look for her so insistently. But the lady suddenly remembered that the original Giselle threatened the main character's life. The witch began to think that it was in vain that she escaped and locked herself in the shop prematurely. The girl cautiously looked behind the door, revealing only a small crack. But she only saw the boy who came yesterday again and asked why all the doors and windows were closed. The lady asked him why he had come, because she had already said everything last time, and she also signed a contract to work in this shop, to which the boy replied that he understood everything, and that he was here to give something to Mr. Renji. She said she didn't know where he was, because she herself wanted to know, because she hadn't seen him for a long time. The girl thought that he hadn't forgotten about her because he sent her food. In this case, the stranger offered to take the goods away. It's in a cart. It's big enough to fit in. The cart was so big that it blocked the way, so they needed to collect the goods urgently. But the lady didn't want to leave the shop now, so she asked if she could lift it alone. She already has little time and must hurry, because if she continues to resist, she will have to tell the master that she is not doing her job well. This could have a negative impact on her salary, because Giselle is only on probation. The cart really blocked the way, making it impossible to even pass through the alley. The girl asked the boy to come in and give her the goods so she could accept them. The boy said that if the lady breaks the product, he will take responsibility. They reached the decision that Giselle would have to climb into the cart, although she didn't want to do it until the end. There were many boxes inside, and it was impossible to understand which one was her product. The merchant suggested that the bottom drawer next to her was his product. The witch bent down to pick up the box, when suddenly a sword was put to her throat, and the blonde ordered him not to move. The competitor said that Dylan would have to pay him because he helped with the capture of the villain. The girl instantly realized that this bastard had simply sold her out. The gentleman ordered him to be taken to Giselle's execution site. The blonde asked to lower the sword because there was some kind of misunderstanding. The lady tried to say that people should not be threatened with a sword and intimidated, to which the man replied that Giselle is not a person. He began to say that he had heard many times that she resembled some kind of Giselle. But then a mistake occurred. When the attacker fell silent, the blonde asked where they were going. The hero said that black magic had increased and accused the lady of accepting this magic. The blue-eyed girl started shouting that she was a person with a bright soul and that she did not use black magic at all. She also claimed that they were looking for the wrong person. The man asked if this was a side effect of the tinctures or if a real demon had taken over the lady. But now it didn't matter, because Dylan decided that Giselle would die at that very moment. She felt like she had a split personality, because she seemed to be a very kind main character. And sweet, but in reality, the man looks more like a mental patient. The girl assumed that the blonde was executing her now, but he said that first he would destroy the devil inside the witch. The lady simply didn't understand why he was saying something about demons, because it was obvious that it was nonsense. But suddenly, she remembered that there was something similar in the poisoned apple. Then the mage who made a contract with the demon was executed, and he was burned with white magic, the complete opposite of black. The blue-eyed girl started shouting that the devil doesn't exist, and that Dylan himself is one. But she continued, after all, asking anyone if there are innocent people who threaten citizens. Why is the devil threatening to kill an innocent person? He claimed that the warrior sees no essence, because what kind of force is it that cannot distinguish between an innocent person and a criminal? But he just went crazy. He grabbed the girl by the neck and asked how she knew about his skills. But the lady couldn't answer with strong hands, squeezing her throat. And the blonde started wondering if she would really die like this. In an instant, inside the cart where the scammers were, those same beautiful butterflies appeared, which instill fear with their appearance. Smelling the pollen, the man threw the girl away from him, covering his nose with his hand. He said that this was a very interesting trick. A couple of skillful moves, and the warrior, taking a sharp sword with a sharp blade, cut the pets, breaking their wings into pieces. He began to slowly approach the lady, hoping that he would finally bring justice to this guilty girl, when suddenly a strange sign appeared on the floor, and a violet atmosphere penetrated the room. From the sign on the floor, some blue smoke beams began to appear, which clearly resulted from strong black magic. The man tried to defend himself with his main weapon, but those, like huge tentacles, began to pull the warrior's body behind them, twisting and holding his arms in every possible way. As a result of all this, the dark forces threw Dylan out of the cart. A mage appeared behind the lady and told her that if she stood on the edge, she might fall. The boss tried to press the girl slightly against him so that she wouldn't fall along with the warrior, but she began to demonstrate that she was not trying to escape. To this, he replied that he knew what was happening. The girl sadly explained that she also didn't try to kill the butterflies, but Renji also understood. And he knew everything. And besides, the brunette said that the blonde had to tell him something. Only the blue-eyed girl, after trying to figure it out for herself, apologized for leaving the shop. She also thanked him for saving her once again. In front of the owner's eyes, the girl said that before the boss arrived, the butterflies saved her. So first she should thank them. The man stated that they were his servants, but he did not ask them to help the lady. The girl is now indebted to Renji, because it was very difficult to reach her. But she tried to ask, if these butterflies are servants, then if they are cut with a sword, can they survive? Renji said that he bound them to her as observers, and she killed them, which Giselle did not admit. Although, looking at her attitude towards the butterflies, everything is fine with them, and the head appeared immediately in front of her when they were cut, which means she doesn't receive any signal from them. Giselle asked if Dylan was dead, and if he had recently tried to kill her. The girl began to worry that if he was absorbed by the magic circle, what would happen to the novel if the main character died? But the mage cunningly noted that the lady spoke as if she were talking about someone else. The man said he heard that the girl worried when Dylan received some kind of injury, because she loved him very much. The red-eyed man knew that she was not the real Giselle Loisbane, but he still kept talking nonsense, and from her face it was clear that he was making fun of her. It was interesting what happened between Giselle and Dylan. She was unrequitedly in love with him, as if obsessed with loving him. Using her acting skills, she began to scream, feigning pain and resentment for what Dylan had done. But the mage only frowned and looked away, and then turned around, and said he had to leave. the master used that magic again to take the girl where he needed her to. Renji's magic was incredible, as they moved very fast. She wondered if Renji was so strong, how strong Wayne was, and someone so strong died from a poisonous snake in the novel's plot. The man said it was not the time to stand still, because it was necessary to move the shop. It was very strange, because the brunette looked serious. The lady thought that the boy was sure that Dylan was alive. Although it is unlikely that the main character will die, he will probably recover. And he will come back for her. The main character had to fix everything, because even if he was seriously injured, she shouldn't care. The girl asked, while collecting all her things, where to transport everything. The mage said he would move everything at once to another place. He took some red liquid and started drawing with it on the floor. As the blonde started worrying if the bottles would break, Renji asked to remove anything that could break. Remembering, Jaisel said that not only did he follow her there, but one person literally sold her out and betrayed. But the man knew it too, because his butterflies transmitted absolutely everything to him. At that moment, the girl realized that the head was just calmly watching this madman strangle her. In a moment, smiling maliciously, the man suggested that the lady wondered what had become of the blonde. To this, she replied that she didn't want to know any details. The magician asked the girl to come closer to him, but she burst into tears, saying there was no need to show her anything. But he had no intention of doing so. As she approached, the red-eyed man looked at her neck and noticed a bruise. The blonde said no one burned her, so the bruise is normal. But he cleverly realized that she wanted to burn her, to which she nervously explained that the man had said something about the devil. But she didn't understand anything, because she was human. The girl said he strangled her and called her a demon. And suddenly, the girl realized that Jaisel was in love with Dylan and was now shouting very stupidly at him. The knight smiled and asked if the lady's heart was broken because he was hurt. Without waiting for an answer, the owner asked not to call Dylan dear, because it was probably unpleasant for him. In Wayne Ayre's novel, a mysterious person is the second main character. The magician definitely won't like the fact that the villain has tender feelings for her sworn enemy. Renji said that even if his leg is broken, he will gather the soldiers and attack them. So they must leave the tent as soon as possible, and after moving, the girl will be able to rest. The magician asked to pack their things while creating a magic circle, but the blonde noticed he was worried about her. He finally finished the magic and asked the lady to come closer so he could take them to a new place. He smiled and hugged the girl while doing magic. Finally, they moved to a new place, which was much more spacious than the previous one. The blonde noticed that Renji was not feeling well, holding his chest and breathing unevenly. She asked him how the man felt, but he just punched the door with his fist, saying that the lady's room was behind it. The magician ordered him to rest, but Jaisel understood that clearly she was not the one who needed rest. The red-eyed man said the tent would be closed for now, and the girl should go to sleep. But the blue-eyed one tried to stop the head, because it seemed to her that she had spent a lot of energy moving, and now it was very difficult for her. She began to wonder if Renji was even resting. Having decided that the lady would lie down for a while, she dropped onto the bed and closed her eyes. This time, the girl almost got into trouble. She thought she would die like this. For the first time, she was so scared. The girl concluded that she would not fall into this again, and in the future, she will not allow this to happen. From now on, the lady will always be by Renji's side. Mr. Wayne has finally arrived. He was informed that if he continued with the same spirit, the soldiers would not notice anything. But suddenly, a man approached the gentleman and turned to him. He began to whisper something in the magician's ear. Wayne asked to make sure they could handle everything, and that everything was ready for the move. They arrived where Renji was, who asked them if they had found what they needed. In the end, it turned out that Dylan did not die, to which he affirmed that the man was too impenetrable. As expected, his test had changed a lot. Usually, such a large object is not used for moving, or other magicians are called for help. But Dylan appeared in the tent too suddenly. The man said he should have come to the estate immediately, and asked why Renji stayed there, to which he replied that no matter how you looked at it, he was definitely a spy. The magician ordered that all personnel be released from the city today, and those who interfere will be expelled. The knight said that Wayne should head towards the castle. He will now lead several demonstrations to divert attention from these white mages. He just bowed and started doing what he was told. But the servant asked why the man needed the woman he had brought home. To this, he replied that she was his employee. Because Jaisel is wanted everywhere. If you look at it that way, she can become a nuisance. But the brunette just smiled and said she was on parole and was his personal employee. He mysteriously closed his eyes, and his favorite butterflies reappeared near him. The magician asked them if Giselle was sleeping, to which he received an affirmative answer. The knight sighed and, getting up from the sofa, whispered that the blonde was a real fool. He went down one floor, opening a magic circle on the room door. He was irritated by the fact that he had to balance magical power, although he had to use the door to move. Upon finding himself back in the tent, Renji decided he needed to call someone to sort things out. The man entered Giselle's room and watched her sleep. The owner ordered his pets to remain in the room until she woke up. But the butterflies wondered if they should let Giselle die due to the boy's previous order. He had avoided conflict with Dylan so far, but when he grabbed the girl, something went wrong. The magician tucked the lady's hair behind her ear and decided they would wait. And they would see. But as long as he is here, she is worth watching. The main character sat down and tried to treat the blonde with the help of light magic. The redhead covered her forehead and announced that she was done. She thanked Viviana, to which she said she only had to help. Dylan said that the witch allied herself with a dark mage. The man asked the lady to stay where she was, but she shouted that she would go with him. Angry, the blonde had already started shouting, asking if the protagonist had forgot how many times she almost died at the hands of a witch. The girl said she had heard rumors that Giselle Lusvin had changed, but he replied that the point is not whether she has changed or not, because the situation is completely different. The redhead said they should be given a chance to receive God's forgiveness. Then she can clean herself up and become a better person. But the green-eyed man could not be convinced. He said that if there is only one way to cleanse a person's soul of black magic, there is no other than to completely destroy it with the flame of purification. He also stated that if the girl treats the villain so lightly, she might suffer. He also added that Giselle had long since lost faith in God, so you shouldn't use your powers on such a woman. But the protagonist did not stop and said she felt very sorry for her. The blonde said she didn't deserve pity, but that he would take care of this bad girl. Then he agreed, but asked to be careful. The girl looked away and then stopped the man with a question. If he knew anything about Renji, she was very interested to know where he was and what he was doing. The warrior finally agreed with the girl, because it was really better for him to return. Once again, the girl was working in a shop when she suddenly noticed that the novel's villains were standing in front of her. The boy introduced himself as Zulian. He was a doctor and was also researching a medicine. But the blonde knew he was a mad scientist who was testing various drugs on people. When he was little, he took the wrong medicine and stopped growing. That's why he looks like a child. In reality, he is already an old man. In the novel, he experiments on Vivian, and it seems that Dylan caught him and cut off his head. The person behind him seems to be Gilberton. All she knows about him is that he is a swordsman whose black magic skills are average. But his swordsmanship is top-notch, and he is something like Wayne's soldier. And this woman Vendrilla, Wayne's right hand, is no inferior to Bedro. In the novel, she is the only necromancer and healer in the organization. Giselle thought they were very cool. Looking at them, she realized that this world is truly the world of a novel. And maybe because they support the villain, it looks like some kind of fan meeting. The scientist, noticing that the lady seemed frozen, said that Giselle was apparently really crazy. The witch suddenly announced that the shop was already closed, and it was strange in general that they had somehow gotten this far. They began to wonder if Renji really hired her. In an instant, Bedro, the owner of this building, appeared in the room, as well as Wayne's assistant. Somehow, the man already knew that Giselle was on parole. The blonde was very tired of hearing everyone call her crazy, so she got angry at the magician and told him she took back all her words of thanks for saving her. The woman said that when she heard about this, she thought it was just a rumor, but now she was finally convinced that they were whispering that the girl was taking drugs. The elder already thought that the crazy woman had taken the wrong drugs and therefore had gone mad, not wanting to hear that this was not the case. The girl sighed deeply and asked to be called when they needed something, but the villains continued to utter this humiliating nickname, and the lady simply had to endure it. But the boys still took pity and decided that it was too long a name. The man said that he was the one who called these people because they need to sort things out. He supposed that in this world, everyone cares about each other. The girl addressed Bedro as the owner, to which he asked to be called by his name. Nodding appreciatively, the witch asked Mr. Bedro to contact the boss, but he said that the guy had some pending matters, so the organization members should stay in the tent. In his opinion, Crazy Giselle is shy and naive. That's why she can't touch cursed objects, and that's why she needed an assistant. It seems that Renji actually left Beidro to take care of them. The girl asked in a serious tone if all these villains were true villains. And moreover, they all turned out not to be what she had imagined. The blonde found out that everyone came to her shop. The doctor said that the clinic for villains he runs is located near her shop. The laboratory used by Windria is located above the shop, with Gilberton's house next door. The girl laughed and called this building a real villain's lair. Noticing the bruise on the lady's neck, the doctor said he had no medicine to remove it, and that he was very sorry. The woman replied that maybe it was a curse, that she wasn't strong in healing, so it was unlikely she could say for sure, but it was impossible to be completely cured of black magic, and the only thing white magic cannot deal with is a curse. The blue-eyed girl said that most likely this bruise would disappear on its own, but instantly she knew that this was white magic. The guy said that dirty white magic is poison for people like them. The old woman also confirmed his words, adding that this is precisely why white magic is the opposite of black magic. The witch thought that this power might not affect her if it was poison, although magic and poison are different things. Gilberton said that Diller's soldiers use white magic. It is an amorphous force, similar to magical power. The only difference is that magic is an innate power, and the mana used by soldiers is acquired. Although, if you remember, the novel said that Viviana helped Dylan in training, all because white magic and mana are identical. Giselle thought about it. Even if the warrior's power has the properties of magic, they do not know how it affects black mages. Even though the saleswoman is not a mage, she still signed a contract with a mage and tried to use his magic. Because her body is defiled by black magic, the girl decided that she needed to sort out her thoughts and offered to bring more food. Looking at herself in the mirror, the blue-eyed girl realized that, without knowing it, she had used black magic, and this bruise was not like that. The old man approached the girl, not understanding how it was possible to strangle such a sweet person, because among those who possess white magic, there are no human beings. But even if he was on the lady's side, he still called her Crazy Giselle. The redhead said that not a single mage managed to survive an encounter with Dylan, and that they were just very lucky. The boy began to scare everyone with his madness, saying that he really wanted to take the warrior's blood for research. The girl could only watch as the villains discussed the fact that Dylan's blood was a very interesting specimen for them. But no one wanted to become a corpse. Suddenly, a brunette appeared behind the lady, asking her to take what she had in her hands. He gave her a weapon against Dylan's white magic, but the girl immediately saw that it was a cursed product from her shop. But the doctor also confirmed that the warrior is very dangerous, and they need means of defense, because he is characterized by ending the fight in one blow. Giselle thought that in the novel Dylan was a just hero who went towards his goal no matter what. But something is wrong here. The blonde realized that at the moment, she was being strangled by pale hands. She made a mistake. Dylan's true nature is an ultra-secret power that is only revealed in the second half of the novel. But now, the girl knows that the warrior will try to find her and kill her as soon as possible. The woman patted the blonde on the shoulder and asked her not to worry too much, because even if the main character appeared, they would not stand idly by. The villains promised that they would protect the witch in any case, because she was a member of their organization. The girl replied that she was not such a weak villain and could protect herself, but Vendrilla frowned and said that if an adult wanted to help her, then she should just thank him. The girl really scared the organization when she started crying, because they understood that her heart could hurt a lot. But when asked about the pain, Giselle was quick to refute these speculations, saying that it was the first time someone had told her that they would protect her. Before coming to this world, she had to do everything alone. Everyone started trying to calm the weak villain, because apparently she was very scared of Dylan. Gilberton promised that he would show the lady a special place where she could hide. For the girl, this was surprising, because now it doesn't seem to her that cursed things are so scary. The same thing happened with Dylan, and she got into another world. But everything was so confusing that the blonde understood little. But having decided that she is the only employee of this shop, she needs to open. The girl shouted that she would earn a lot of money, when suddenly Renji appeared from behind, who said that in order to earn it, she must pay him. The lady was very angry, because the head was silently coming up from behind. But the man said that everyone noticed it immediately, and that she was too stupid not to notice. The boy realized that the lady was too noisy, but he managed to get along with the others. which amused him. The girl said she fixed her things and rested well. It was awkward to ask such questions, but having ventured, the blonde asked how the night felt. He replied that it didn't matter and also asked if the blue-eyed girl was crying. He continued to embarrass the emotional worker by saying that when the organization announced their protection, she got very emotional. He also added that when he saved her, the girl somehow thanked him, but if he said that he would also protect her, then the girl would burst into tears. Having calmed down, the blonde whispered that she was very grateful to the master. The brunette smiled and with a serious look, despite the smile, tied a scarf around his neck, telling her that this is temporary and next time he will bring something else. The red-eyed man turned and asked to get ready, adding that there was no need to open the shop yet. This was not necessary, because the magician would give the lady a tour of the city. Upon going out onto the street, the girl realized that she hadn't even noticed that there were many people near the shop. The man gestured with his hand and pointed to the people, saying that this was the busiest place in the city, pointing to the stalls famous for their fresh fruit. The shop was located next to the largest shop in Vangel. Sometimes there are vendors in front of the shop with various delicacies, and if a lady wants to buy something, Renji allows her to go out and buy it. For Giselle, it was very interesting, because there are many different things here. Suddenly, the lady asked if they should walk around the city like this if they were villains, to which the villain affirmed that everything would be fine, because they were quite far from the capital. Vangel, which was in the novel, only villains can enter this area, living here. You must keep in mind that there are many criminals, and anyone caught committing a crime will be expelled, so people don't pay much attention to others. The girl exhaled when she realized that it was safe to walk there. The blonde said she knows that Van Hill is also the headquarters of Mr. Wayne. The man asked how much the witch knew about Wayne Air. She replied that she knew as much as she knew about the organization. She also knew a little about the future, but she didn't know his personality. In the novel, he was a silver-haired man. But suddenly, the lady's stomach started to growl, so the gentleman realized it was time for lunch. The magician hoped that the lady had little appetite, but the witch was just glad she didn't have to hide in the alleys. The blonde said that from now on, Vangel is her second favorite city. Then she asked which one was first, but the lady understood that he simply wouldn't understand her, because in this world, such cities do not exist. In an instant, something very large and fast ran right in front of Giselle, and thank God that Renji managed to pull her closer to him to protect her. In the end, it turned out to be the carriage that almost ran over the lady. Red eyes, he said that if a carriage ran over her, the fault would be his. These were the rules of his city, which meant that if a crime was committed silently, no one would know anything. Giselle shouldn't have said that this place was her second favorite. The girl realized that it would be better to sit in the shop. That's why, when going out somewhere, it's worth taking Gilberton with you. But the girl seriously thought that this boy was the head's right hand. To this, the man just laughed, saying that Gilberton is a subordinate colleague who carries out the boss's orders. And if she asks him to protect her, he will do it. In this case, the witch asked, which means that the boss ordered the brunette to protect her. She was very happy that Wayne already knew about her, and also asked if she could visit the shop to meet. The blonde noticed that Renji was starting to get nervous. Apparently, he didn't want her to see the head. The blue-eyed girl said she wanted to see him because he was an incredibly handsome man. He was very confused, while the lady thought that if she could work hand in hand with Wayne, then Renji wouldn't be offended if she left him. He smiled sarcastically when the girl said that Wayne's silver hair was very beautiful. The man even remembered that Giselle liked silver hair. When he started to retreat, the magician asked what was wrong with the black hair. The blonde began to guess that Renji was jealous of the knight's beauty, to which he replied that the girl was very frivolous because she praised someone she hadn't even seen. Then the girl affirmed that the magician did not consider his head beautiful and snorted. She walked forward. Red eyes remembered that Giselle said she knew the future of some important people. He stopped and stated that he had a question about the future of those people, which the lady knew. He asked if Dylan Stash was among the important people. To this, the witch gave an affirmative answer. Ranji began to ask more and more questions about what the main character's future would be, and if he would be poisoned. Giselle replied that they would kill Dylan, but the magician did not back down in the fight for details. To the last question, who will kill Stash? The one who ended up in this world replied that he would be executed by Wayne Air. The knight smiled, realizing the pitiful future that awaited him. Giselle simply couldn't believe that he was happy to learn about the main character's death. Most likely, the magician hates him so much because they have been enemies for a long time. Or maybe there is some other reason that the lady does not know. The shop owner said he had business to do, so he would go and sort it out. In addition, he added that the girl had the day off today, handing her some kind of sphere from his hand. The butterflies, which seemed to have died a long time ago, reappeared from his hand. The red one was called Ren, and the white one was called Ban. The magician said that without knowing the name of the pet, he could not communicate with them. The blonde shouted that she always communicated with them, asking them to say something. Ren said they tried to warn her, but she said they were mating. At this, the man burst out laughing. The girl thought that Wayne had appointed Gilberton to look after her. She didn't think the master would find out about her so soon. She would like to see this man, and he needs to arrange a meeting in person. But the butterflies suggested that the lady likes strong and handsome men. That's why he needs to be strong and handsome. He asked her to stop and forgive him for what happened then. But the pets called the blonde arrogant, who constantly eats cookies. But that at least once she should exercise. They continued to bother her, telling her that this way the girl would not find a good partner, which really irritated her. But suddenly, the witch asked how the butterflies communicate with Renji, guessing that with the help of telepathy. Red replied that they could only talk to him if he gave them permission. The girl thought that if something happened, she could talk to Renji through butterflies. But this is not the case. But if she is attacked, the magician will be the first to know. That is, they can still contact the knight. Dylan knows her, so they must be prepared for anything. The blonde asked not to talk to her because she had to work. Giselle, the last villain in the novel of the first part, appears in the second part of The Magician Wayne Eyre. In that part, Viviana also appears, and there everyone will meet. Wayne gathers all the dark mages and will try to expose the whole country to the influence of black magic. At the same time, he wanted to show everyone his strength. The lady thought that he was trying to sacrifice the whole city. Poison Apple is a novel where the main focus is on the character's emotions, and she is not sure what exactly the mages did. Viviana was then cursed and dying, a curse for which Giselle risked her life. The question immediately arose why Giselle called her. Because she doesn't hate Viviana. She was trying to find out if the main character was now cursed, although the healing heroine was stronger than in the original story. So the dark side will be defeated, and the girl will also die. It was scary not to know where to go. The girl was thinking out loud, when suddenly Vendrilla appeared and asked what curse we were talking about. The woman stated that she could help the lady with the curse. To this, the girl replied that it is not so important now. The redhead asked if Giselle was studying, as she could teach her some moves, but she had never had students. Suddenly, a guy burst into the room and called Vindria. It was strange to see Aunt here again, although back then he often came to the shop. He said he couldn't believe his wife was here. He was the redhead's delivery boy and her only student. Vindria never intended to hire students. They started arguing, to which the girl asked to discuss this elsewhere. Silence finally fell upon her when suddenly new customers appeared. She decided that she would solve the plot a little later, but now she needed to work in the shop. Renji thought the saleswoman would rest well on her day off. In the old shop, she often wandered the alleys, but now she started working hard. He thought that this shop had more weekends than that one. That's why she was tired of those weekends. In an instant, her gaze fell on the boy, who shouted that all mages were dirty, and they wouldn't last long. The spy was immediately slapped on the cheek for everything he had done. The man swore he would tear out his tongue or cut off his head. To this, Wayne only agreed. But suddenly, Renji entered the dialogue and asked if he could keep this guy. The old man immediately agreed and said that the man could take this poor man away. A scream was heard in the alley, which indicated that he would never say anything to anyone again. But he put a homemade gag in his mouth, telling him that he didn't need to say anything, only that he needed not to die temporarily. He decided that he would put up a barrier. With a snap of his fingers, the red-eyed man teleported a chair and sat on it. The brunette asked how much magic he needed to use to have silver hair. Wayne was surprised that the knight asked him this. The magician said he was a little confused by such a question, and asked if Renji really wanted to change his hair color. It was strange for Wayne, because the man had never liked silver hair. But now he was seriously asking. Instantly, the magician declared, repeating the girl's words, that the man's hair was beautiful and shiny, but the servant just bowed and asked if his hair was really that shiny. When Renji realized that he had answered his own question, he asked everyone to get out of his sight. Finally, the old man said that if he used his magic randomly, he might get into trouble. Anyway, he got a big surprise when he moved the shop. Although Vangel is safe, it was very risky. Brown said that all this was due to the shop employees. In addition, Dylan sealed Giselle's neck with his mana. To prevent him from dragging her, it's best to hide here. Although it can be gotten rid of over time, simple force cannot erase it. They have no choice but to wait for it to disappear. The knight asked Wayne to go to the shop because he had a very ardent admirer. It was about that intern employee. The man said he would soon promote her to a full-time employee because she had already worked very hard there. The gray-haired man wondered if she was really Giselle. After all, it seems that the rumors that she is crazy are true. No matter how you look at it, the blonde is very different from the real heroine of the novel. But no one there knows that it is not her. In this world, only Renji knows the real Giselle Losfin. Remembering the traitor, the man said that he needed to end his life quickly. He whispered that he would check the spy's head and release him later. The assistant suddenly asked cautiously if Renji really wanted to release that guy with a gag in his mouth. The decoy would be a big move for Dylan, as they would now be chased by him. In the end, the man will break his head and let him go like a fool. I wondered if the White One knew this. Does that noble Viviana miss him? At that moment, Giselle was very bored at her workplace because there were no more customers. Suddenly, as if out of nowhere, red dust began to fall. The girl started shouting at Ten to leave because it was poisonous dust. Dren told her not to make any noise because he was trying to sleep. The girl tried to ask them to fly elsewhere because they would kill the guy. The delivery boy kept crying about how Vendrilla abandoned him, even though he could die now. The blonde decided that she would stop them herself. She had already gotten up from the counter when she suddenly saw Renji, who appeared there. He asked what the lady was trying to do. Renji wanted to say something when moving the shop to such a spacious place. The man said he brought Giselle's lover here. The magician spoke of Tina, who didn't even want to know his name because he wouldn't remember him anyway. But the lady said she didn't need to look for a lover because she had someone to worry about. Hearing the flattering words, Renji patted the girl's head and calmed down. Then he looked at Dees and asked why he was there. The lady replied that he was her guest, even at such a late hour. She said she would soon become an official employee here and saw some shortcomings here. That is, that customers do not pay attention to the shop's opening hours. For example, the case of Ten and Windria to escape the boy. She comes to the shop every day at dawn. And if everything goes like this, the girl didn't understand why her job was here. But the man replied that Windria had never been like that. Dias clings to Vindria, asking her not to leave him, and Vindria does not want to accept him as a student, and this situation was problematic to tell the master. Suddenly, the door opened, and a woman crossed the threshold, to which the man replied that they needed to talk. Renji said that while the shop is closed, they should be outside. In addition, they included their personal circumstances, and how her employee said she was extremely dissatisfied with this. To all questions, the redhead just asked to forget it. The girl didn't think everything would turn out this way, but now the boy's life is saved thanks to Windria. The knight noticed that the blonde became sad after the guests left, to which she replied that she was simply worried about the life of an innocent person. In a moment, the worker asked what the guy was doing here so late. Red Eyes said he didn't want to come in, but he saw the lady so tired and came to find out what had happened. But Giselle immediately realized that this was morning surveillance, and she asked the dark-haired man to hand over the new product he received. In any case, now that the gentleman is convinced of everything, he can leave because the girl is resting. Renji asked where he should go if this was his shop, to which he received the answer that he could go home. The blue-eyed girl sighed and said she was an employee who looks after cleanliness. And the order here, this meant that there was only one room in the shop. She suggested that she would have to sleep on the floor. He replied that he still had a room. Giselle said there was only one bed in the room. Now that she remembered, she mentioned Ten as her lover. And if she thought about it that way, they would sleep in the same bed with him. The girl shouted embarrassed that she didn't want to do that and stepped back a couple of steps. But the gentleman said that the girl was really crazy. The lady couldn't believe that he was going to sleep in her room after closing the shop. Realizing that this was true, the blonde said that Renji is really an evil person. The brunette said that it seemed the girl was very exhausted, so he would give her a vacation starting tomorrow. She immediately rejoiced and said that she would cover all expenses and he could sleep as much as he wanted. But she would sleep on the floor. Literally, with a snap of his fingers, the man bought a bed right in that room, saying that his room would be noisy, but she could sleep here on this bed. He explained this by saying that it would be uncomfortable for him to sleep on the floor. The girl jumped with joy, realizing that she was looking forward to a vacation. And without worries, the lady decided to go to Zulian and tell him everything. Suddenly, the blonde noticed that Renji had been in the shop the whole time, and he heard all her rejoicing. She approached him and asked him to give her money and just leave. All this taking into account that yesterday the owner himself insisted on it. But he asked the lady to get ready to go out for breakfast. The girl was surprised that her boss was having breakfast with her, but the red-eyed man saw no problem with this. Brown said that Giselle is on vacation and can do whatever she wants. The blonde wanted to take a walk alone, asking if the magician knew what a vacation was. The man replied that vacation was a game, but the lady objected that it was a break from work. Giselle didn't understand why she should be with him on her vacation, because it's not a vacation, because she still sees him all the time. But Renji remembered that the witch is still wanted. Although they are in Vangel, she must be afraid of a hidden attack. No matter where you look, there are criminals everywhere. The magician said that not everywhere here is safe. He said that usually, so as not to arouse suspicion, they go to normal shops, but that she should not go out alone anywhere. The girl said that Gilberton would go with her, but the boy is busy with something. That's why Renji is still here next to the girl. The magician suddenly asked if the bruises had disappeared. The man bent down and placed his hand on the lady's neck, offering to solve this problem. The gentleman said that there is a way to heal this bruise. Now that I think about it, this bruise is still so bright because Dylan still used his mana. There is nothing you can do about it, and you will have to spend your vacation with your boss. The dark-haired man asked why the girl didn't change her clothes, and it turned out she had no other clothes. She spent the money given to Giselle on food because she wanted to diversify her diet. It was surprising, but the prices in Banhul were higher than she thought. In this case, the man offered to buy her clothes first. She ate a lot and was happy, looking at the boy suspiciously, not understanding how much he ate. The only important thing was that the witch was finally full, and now they could go shopping for clothes. The magician suggested that such a breakfast was unlikely to change her clothing size. The clothing store worker greeted the boys with a smile. Suddenly, the woman started calling Giselle a lover, saying she was glad to see her, and that she couldn't believe the girl came into her shop because she was so eager to see the witch. For her it was obvious, as she was the first villain to go to Salsha Tower and return alive. This tower was famous for the fact that no one returned alive from there. She asked how many people the witch killed there, but she didn't kill anyone, because all the mercenaries drank the poison themselves. And they died. The lady started to bother, saying that there were rumors that Giselle had met Dylan himself. A man came to defend himself from the ardent fans, saying that they were in a hurry, so the worker should show her clothes. The saleswoman asked what the magician was doing in the women's shop, and the blonde felt the atmosphere as if Renji wanted to fight with her. The butterflies began to claim that it was better not to approach the gentleman, because he was a very powerful magician, and if she didn't believe it, she could ask him herself. The girl approached the magician and told him that she would always be devoted to him. And finally, the redhead beast arrived where the couple was, and told them that he had found the suits that would fit Mrs. Giselle perfectly. The first set was famous for the fact that the fabric was so black that it was almost invisible at night. It was also very elastic and durable, so she wouldn't dare get caught anywhere and tear. But Renji saw such fabric for the first time and began to ask if there was anything for men. But the lady just snorted, reminding them that they were in a women's clothing store. And Giselle hoped there would be no blood. The girl collected shopping bags containing excellent running clothes. But it was quite strange, because the girl doesn't think she will go anywhere among them. But the man replied that yes, and hoped it wouldn't be necessary. The blonde realized that if Renji was saying something like that, then Dylan was serious. The magician instantly asked why Giselle was carrying purchases in her hands, and immediately moved them with the help of magic. In fact, magic was a convenient thing. Suddenly, the girl wondered if she should study self-defense magic. Red Eyes immediately said that not everyone can have magic. He knew that one was born with magic, but there was another way, a potion that could increase magical power, or recreate magic in those who did not have it. The knight said that it is very dangerous to artificially create magic within oneself, but she just nodded and asked how to increase her magical power at that moment. There is an attribute called increasing magical power, which is determined from the very birth of a person. This refers to the size of the container. It has always been this way. A strong mage is born strong, and a weak one is born weak. So the lady asked, what about divine power? The same applies to white mages. White magic is based on divine power. Even if black mages use magic, then white magic is no different. The man asked if the blonde knew the difference between magical power and divine power. He stated that this simply does not exist. There is no difference between magical power and divine. But Renji didn't want to talk about it now, so he suggested they stop. He stopped and asked where they would go next. The blue-eyed girl wondered if the granted divine power was like a blessing from God. If magical power and God's power are the same, then the question was what is the difference between a black mage and a white one, and why the two main characters hate black mages so much. They finally reached a place where the lady could heal her bruises. But suddenly, the man's eyes opened slightly and he fell into shock, abruptly taking the girl's hand. He said this place was cancelled. The mage hugged Giselle tightly and squeezed her against him, leaving her bewildered. He literally covered the girl with his own back from a large explosion. He created a protective barrier before everything happened, and then shouted to ask if his employee was okay. But the blonde was fine. Renji too. But he just didn't understand what was going on here. A guy came out of there, adjusted his glasses, and said his bomb exploded by mistake. The moment he saw Giselle Loisbane, the stranger began to rejoice in admiration, saying there were many rumors about her. He said it was a great honor for him to meet the girl. He introduced himself as Mitchell, or rather the culprit of the explosion at the Imperial Palace. That occurred 10 years ago. Most likely, the guy wanted to pay a villainous compliment, saying the bounty for Giselle's capture was incredibly large. The boy tried to reach out his hands towards the blonde, but Renji grabbed them. He had a strong desire to blow something up, so he offered the lady a bomb for an attractive price, which she simply refused. Losfin was not happy that everyone was now very interested in her, which is why the lady is famous in local circles. In any case, the man asked what was wrong with Emily and if she was inside. He simply threw him aside and led the boys inside that building. He rang the doorbell when the red-eyed man asked to be left alone. To the blue-eyed girl, it was immoral. That is, just bursting into someone else's room. But inside the room lay the same cursed doll Isabel. The girl was scared because there were only cursed things in the room. But Renji just smiled and offered to go in. The lady didn't like it, but the man insisted he wouldn't die. The girl was afraid of everything in that room, to the point of meeting the eyes of the cursed doll. Seeing that the blonde was afraid of the doll, the brunette kicked it aside. It flew to the side, and Giselle was worried that this toy would attack them, and she felt strange. Renji smiled sarcastically and said they couldn't stay here forever and had to hurry. When the lady looked away, the man pushed her against the wall and asked if she wanted him to carry her. This made the girl blush and move away from the mage. This gesture offended him, considering the most terrible things were these cursed things. At this, the girl screamed that she hadn't even digested what she had for breakfast. Going deeper into the room, she saw an old woman washing clothes. Giselle assumed this old woman was Emily. The red-eyed man approached the woman and told her he had come, to which she started calling him baby, even though he was no longer a child. But the blonde noticed that when Renji arrived here, he seemed gentler and more comfortable. The old woman asked if her grandson had come to show off his girlfriend, but it turned out to be a joke, which made the girl happy. They looked very much like grandmother and grandson, and Giselle was interested to know what kind of relationship they had. The grandmother supposed they had come to her to get rid of that strange bruise, although she hoped that little girl would be her daughter-in-law. Emily stated that what is on the villain's neck is very dangerous. She asked to see what was peeking out of the girl's neck. Giselle thought they brought her here for a reason, so it was better to show her. The woman asked how they met, and the blonde suddenly remembered that she hadn't even introduced herself. The lady began to tell who she was and what she was, when suddenly Renji said that since she worked a lot, he transferred her to a permanent job. The girl was surprised by this, and also by the fact that they didn't tell her. The blue leaf told her that if this topic hadn't started, the gentleman would have just stayed silent. The old woman laughed and said that the baby had brought her a fun girl, but said that at least it wasn't boring for her. But in any case, this man is an employee of her shop. The man told his grandmother that she worked full-time in that cursed shop. She began to ask if this bruise on the worker's neck could be hidden somehow. The old woman suggested that place hurt quite a bit looking at the girl's neck. The employee immediately realized that the case was not easy, and it would be difficult to hide. But there is no time for despair, because they just have to wait a little. He took one of her fabrics and offered to use it. The woman dipped a piece of cloth in the magic solution and began to soak it there. She said that 1 week would be enough for the treatment. Red Eyes was very surprised, because doing so took longer than he thought. He needs to apply at least 3 layers of magical power to hide the spot. The brunette nodded obediently, saying they would return in a week. But the old woman stopped them and asked them to sew something for her while they were here. But the man objected, saying they were busy and it was time to go. Grandma started saying she had vision problems and the lady could help her. The naive fool called the heartless gentleman, and she herself began to ask him what she had to do. The woman took out and opened her chest with threads and needles, asking a favor of her dear. Finally, Giselle realized that Emily makes the cursed dolls, and that Isabel is also her work. An elderly lady who is very good at threading, only pretends to be weak and likes to see people suffer. The girl decided she wouldn't trust anyone else in this city. However, the old man can really save the maiden from a bruise. Red Eyes said it was hard to believe, but it was true. The owner announced that from now on, if a lady wants to go out somewhere, she will go out with him or with Gilberton. The girl asked him the reason, and then asked him to honestly tell her if they had broken up. She stated that if the boy continues to harass her, then it's better to fire her, because he doesn't even let her rest properly. But he just smiled sweetly and handed the girl a box of treats, telling her she could go into the room and eat them. Giselle couldn't hide the fact that she was happy to receive so much delicious food from her boss. The blonde said she just wanted to clarify everything, but that it wasn't necessary to buy all this. After a couple of hours, Renji wondered why the girl hadn't left the room for a long time, suggesting she was still eating sweets. The door was open, and the man called asking if he could come in. But suddenly, from the room, wheezing and groans asking for help began to be heard. The boss opened the door and shouted if everything was okay with his employee. But it turned out there was nothing serious. The lady was crying because Renji had taken all her sweets. But in reality, the girl was just talking in her sleep. He sat down next to her and realized how ridiculous it was. The mage wondered if people who raised chickens felt the same way. The man looked around and realized that the room was not spacious, and the walls seemed to press in. But still, Giselle lives here alone and is very used to this kind of life. He concluded that an independent girl is stronger than she looks. Renji placed his hand on the sleeping woman's cheek, smoothing a lock of her golden hair. But suddenly, the principal was on top of the girl, hanging right above her. He noticed that the roots of the blonde's hair had turned black, and this was not a mistake. It was most likely a side effect of black magic. He took Giselle by the chin and examined her face to see if anything else had changed. Since the mage had never met the real Giselle, he didn't know what she originally looked like. Looking at that bruise, Renji realized how strange Dylan was for leaving those marks right on her neck. If he could erase them, he would get rid of them immediately. In an instant, the blonde's eyes began to open, and she looked at the boy with surprise. She immediately blushed, not understanding why his head was so close to her while she slept. But he just thought, if the lady has the ability to resist poison, then she is mocking him. After all, even if you choke her a little, she gets bruises on her neck. She was as fragile as a feather. The man immediately said that the girl was not handling the role of Giselle Loisfin well. She only has her name, so for her he will build the most magnificent cage. The girl looked bewildered at the knight, asking about the safety of the cage. She said she might look stupid, but she didn't want to be seen as a bird or a pet. Besides, she suddenly decided to sell birds in her shop, but the employment contract was about selling cursed things. But Renji just laughed, to which the lady said that in that case, he should raise her salary. Red Eyes concluded that his Giselle was very beautiful and cheerful. When she returns to the mansion, a better cage will need to be prepared. After the blonde spoke with Renji, she left somewhere. Exploring the flavors of poison was fun, but when you mix them with real fruit, it's an incredible mix. The blue-eyed girl thought she really had a unique ability, and where she got it from. This is strange, considering that in the original Giselle was poisoned, because her current abilities are not the same as those of the heroine of the original. Suddenly, the lady was distracted from her thoughts by the boy, who immediately apologized. He was a customer. It was surprising that he came, because the girl was on vacation. She immediately said the shop was closed today. The buyer insisted, saying he needed something urgently. Giselle couldn't find what the boy was looking for a long time, because she hadn't resolved the product yet. Suddenly, she finally found what she needed, and the guest behind let out a spider from a jar. Right on the worker's back. She felt a slight sting, thinking they had mosquitoes in the shop. But suddenly she saw that something had fallen, or rather a spider. The girl got scared and lifted the box, swinging towards the spider. The lady started hitting the floor with a box to kill it. Her eyes filled with tears, and the culprit of all this asked her if she was okay. He touched the spot on the lady's head, pointing with his finger where she had been bitten. Seeing the blonde's fear, the stranger apologized for suddenly touching the worker. The blue-eyed girl noticed that blood was coming out of the wound. The boy asked if the saleswoman had any medicine that could be applied to the bite site, but she wasn't sure if they were there. He said he had medicine in his shop and the girl could come in. It took time to meet him, and he introduced himself as a pharmacist named Tons, who runs a small shop near the Northwest Square. The blonde smiled sweetly and then accidentally dropped the box. The stranger suggested they go to his shop to buy medicine. It wasn't far and wouldn't take much time, but the girl smiled and refused because she needed to take care of the shop. The boy reminded her that the shop is closed, but that she can't rest because she needs to earn money, at least by cleaning. The buyer awkwardly scratched the back of his neck and said he would come next time. The butterflies immediately went to Giselle and reminded her to close the shop. Open closed doors as if nothing had happened. Vindria also did the same. It's impossible to say otherwise. He is another criminal. Besides, it was very strange that he pressed exactly on the bite spot and could see where the spider bit. The bite site was covered in hair. The girl decided to taste his blood, sensing the taste of orange. Suddenly, the blonde realized that the customer had slipped a poisonous spider to her. The girl dared to tell Vindria about this. She didn't see how he brought the spider. The butterflies were resting in a corner of the shop, so they didn't see much of the situation. There was a possibility that it fell from the ceiling, but since they moved here, Giselle had never seen insects. And if they had a poisonous spider, it was impossible for the butterflies not to have noticed. The woman also thought it was definitely suspicious. The lady also said that he claimed to be a pharmacist, and that maybe he was the quack Zulian was talking about. According to Zulian, he sells a simple painkiller, passing it off as medicine. But curiously, the symptoms disappear and people don't notice. The blue-eyed girl thought that if a painkiller could be substituted and passed off as a panacea, then poison could be passed off as a cure. The redhead immediately asked if Renji had said anything about Tina. To this, the girl replied that she hadn't heard anything like that. Then, Vindrilla concluded that the gentleman was not particularly angry. She admitted that Ten was the one he called a messenger, and she was afraid of getting tired in vain if she became fond of him. The lady asked why she didn't accept Ten as a student, to which she replied that it was useless to teach a mediocre boy about curses. His magic vessel was not deep, and others could only mock him. Magic has a distinctive characteristic. It is determined from birth. The same goes for the size of a magic vessel. It is determined from birth, as Renji said. Milady asked if it was possible to increase the size of the magic vessel. Vindria replied that there is a way. Although they know it, they do not use it. Each person has only one vessel, and its size is determined from the beginning. But there is a way to increase the capacity of the vessel. It is necessary to dig the inside of the vessel and expand it. A magic vessel is the heart of a mage, a source of power, and allowing someone else's magic, or even opposite magic, to approach that place is the same as entrusting your life to another person. If you make the slightest mistake, the vessel can break and you can be crippled, or even die. The girl realized that Renji didn't just say it was dangerous. The mage does not contact her. This saddened the lady, or because she was worried about that strange customer. She was also worried about him, and she would have been calmer if he had been nearby. The girl literally said out loud the words she was bored with, when suddenly, a man appeared in the shop. He approached her and asked what had happened to her. He began to wonder why the girl had such a depressed expression on her face. Suddenly, the butterflies began to scream that they had something to report to their owner. But the girl wanted to tell everything when the information was confirmed. After hearing the pet's report, the red-eyed man got angry, and he asked what idiot gave the worker a poisonous spider. The blonde awkwardly said that this was just her guess. She said that the lady was there and knew better than anyone, as if it were intuition or conjecture. If Giselle believes so, then it is true. She didn't think Renji would immediately believe her words. The man promised to send someone to investigate, so the blonde wouldn't have to worry too much. Lospan thanked Renji, but he just sighed and asked where she had been bitten. She turned her back and showed him the bite site. It is no longer bleeding, and the swelling has slightly decreased. The red-eyed man looked at the neck and then asked if the lady's hobby was leaving useless marks. It turned out that the shop does not have a first aid kit that can contain ointment to treat bites. The blue leaf stated that the boss is obliged to provide emergency medical care at work, since she was injured while communicating with a customer and it was a work accident. He said he sees that the girl wants him to take responsibility and that he needs to buy some medicine. He laughed again because just buying the ointment is enough. The man pressed against the miner's neck and inhaled the scent of her body, when suddenly she screamed at him to move away. Renji said that her body temperature is low, and if he applies it, the pain will decrease. Then he smiled sarcastically and asked if it was cold enough or if he needed to do anything else. The lady immediately got up and screamed no, because the pain had disappeared a long time ago. The man asked her where she had gone, but she asked not to talk to her. Jaisel locked herself in the room and forbade the owner from entering there. The brown-haired man pressed against the door and called Jaisel again. He was happy because he heard the girl say she missed him. The girl blushed when she realized he had heard everything. She again demonstrated very loudly that she was telling the truth. When Jaisel started denying everything, he began to manipulate her, asking if she would leave here later. At this, the blonde opened the door and asked where the man was going. Red Eyes chuckled, reminding her that the lady wanted to be alone. He patted her on the head and told her he would stay in the shop and maybe she wouldn't be afraid. Jaisel reported that she was in a bad mood because a man much taller than her opened a closed door. He came in, threw a poisonous spider at her, and blushing, invited her into his shop. But in any case, she would be calmer if Renji was there. She said they would see each other tomorrow and returned to her room. The mage was glad that the pharmacist Tons did this. They say he makes excellent medicines, and it's worth going to see the whole situation. The blonde was excited because the boss took care of the shop and also bought breakfast. The man said he had business in Banquil. Blue Eyes asked what her head does, and it doesn't seem to work next to her. She said she manages the shop. His shop is approved by Wayne. He also does other small things, for example, when mobilizing at an event to replenish the number of people. There are employers everywhere who mobilize powerless workers and make them applaud. And yet, Elogi Azul asked not to attend large events. Her main job is managing the shop. There is no need to go to dangerous events, but Renji didn't understand why they were dangerous. To this, the girl replied that dark mages were gathering there and this. Of course, it was dangerous. The man suddenly asked if in the future there would be an attack on her head at an important event, to which the girl replied positively. Upon hearing this, the brown-haired man said that then he must not forget and participate. After all, this meant that Dylan would appear at one of these events. The lady had thought before, but the type of people who voluntarily go to dangerous places. The mage asked Jaisel to return to the shop with Gilbert and that he would take care of his affairs. The blonde began to worry that Renji was going to meet Dylan, but if the boss throws a stone at Dylan's nape and gives him amnesia, the girl will also feel more comfortable. Suddenly, a doctor appeared and started shouting at Jaisel. He told her that trouble was coming because the gentleman was going to meet that guy. The man said he heard that he was harassing his employee and came closer to look at his face. The red-eyed one looked at him and then threateningly asked who he was. The boy smiled and said he was surprised because he didn't know that Jaisel Loispan was an employee of his shop, but neither he nor Jaisel remembered his discreet face. He said that this maniac was worthless, to which the pharmacist replied that if it weren't for him, he and the girl wouldn't have even met. He supposed that the lady had successfully mastered the forbidden technique. Due to the man's anger, everything around him began to collapse, and he himself wondered if it was worth killing him right here. But it seems he knows something and we can't kill him now. He supposed that Jaisel didn't remember him. Renji will definitely explain everything to her in detail about the forbidden technique. The doctor said he couldn't understand his current behavior. Lospin seemed too common for someone who signed a contract with a being from another dimension. And it's not that the forbidden technique failed, so maybe they had incorrect information about the forbidden technique from the beginning. The brown-haired man had a strange and familiar feeling. At first it seems that this person is talking to the interlocutor, but at some point he gets lost in his thoughts and murmurs quietly. But the mage knew for sure that he had definitely killed that man. The boys observed that the gentleman was indeed in that shop. The doctor admired the gentleman because now he would scare away the quack. The lady said that now this is a popular place. Maybe he just came to look, and his director is surprisingly a very rational person. But the guy said that Mr. Renji only comes to shops for two reasons. Either he needs to buy something or he makes a scene. The boy suggested that if the lady didn't believe him, she should argue with him. They both bet a gold piece that Renji would scare the guy away. She understood that this man was a dark mage who ran the shop. But from the beginning, he didn't pretend to be Wayne's half-brother. And Wayne let him get away with it, even if his brother was defeated. Gossip Girls also talked about the fact that Wayne entrusted him with the keys to the safe. The blonde began to interrogate the ladies, who told her that there were rumors that he visited Wayne's mansion quite often. Furthermore, it transpired that that girl is a fan of Giselle Lospin. She took her hands and asked if she was an employee of a haberdashery, and as a fan, the girl would like to work with someone close. They began to ask the girl what secrets she was hiding and what she could tell, but Giselle tried to pull away from her and asked her to let go of her hand. It felt strange to ask about hiring information, but the gossipy girl responded to these words by calling the situation miserable. She called the girl a versatile criminal who became famous for her slightly beautiful face. The boys watched everything, thinking a fight was brewing. At this, Giselle's friends shouted at her to win. The stranger said that with such a soft face, the lady managed to get a job in that shop. The blonde replied that those words were only flattering her, but it seems the fan was deeply mistaken, since her shop selects employees based solely on their skills. The girl said she has no skills, so venting to others is stupid, and instead it's better to develop your skills. A guy in the building noticed this fight because it was very noisy outside. He said that the person responsible for their conversation was outside. The man said that the culprit must be asked personally. The brown-haired man saw the girl and whispered her name quietly. He wondered how Giselle had called with a forbidden technique. Renji recognized the girl his employee was arguing with. The man called Beidro, but not to resolve the dispute outside, but to stop the culprit of the conflict. The lady held a knife to her back and said that Giselle is no better than others. She pulled out a weapon and stated that the girl, apart from being an employee of the shop, was worthless. Noticing the knife literally pointing at her, the blonde realized she needed to run. But before she could finish her thought, Renji appeared right in front of her. The blade fell to the ground. The man asked what else the attacker would say about Giselle. He smiled, realizing that the lady thought she had chosen the worker without choosing. But she just fell to the ground and instantly escaped, whispering a negative answer. The brown-haired man turned to the girl and asked why she was there. The lady sincerely replied that her friends said the gentleman had gone to scare away tons. The red-eyed man leaned towards the lady and asked if she really wanted to stop him. But she answered the question with a question, or rather, why should she stop the gentleman? Giselle said she wasn't that kind and conscientious. She came to see if her owner was in danger. Renji smiled and wondered if he had answered selfishly. Besides, could Mr. Tones be innocent? The girl also asked if the gentleman had left because he had run out of money. She said that while the owner of the haberdashery was smashing the pharmacy stall, an employee of the nearby shop was also interfering with sales, and he came out to see what was happening. The girl was very offended and said that these people started the fight first. The boss said that the desire to help the boss is admirable, but it is possible that she will not do what she was not asked to do. And if he wants revenge on her, then it would be better to just fight and he would hug her. He asked the two of them to explain, because they had seen everything from the beginning, but they just turned around, and the doctor even said that he had told the lady to moderate her character. The brunette said they needed to return to the shop, and there they would agree. His gaze fell on the pharmacist, who was tied up by black magic. A couple of minutes later, Renji reappeared in the shop to explain everything he wanted. He left the others in the shop, although it was difficult to leave them. Red Eyes asked what the result was, to which they told him that a variable had arisen. They told him that, as a side effect of magic, there were gaps in memory. It is especially difficult to find memories from the last 3 months, as if she were a different person. This was definitely dark magic. He considered the possibility that it was light magic. There was no light spell that erased memory so quickly. Renji said they don't know. Recently, no magical power has been felt in the shop, and this monster also seemed defenseless. But if it was light magic, then it could deceive the eyes of a dark mage. It was strange if the light mage was really involved in this. Say no, Viviana, or maybe someone else, is involved in this. It was not a particularly important memory. It seems that Giselle Loisbane left a strong impression. The assistant reported that he still had a strong desire to stuff her and exhibit her. The brown-haired man asked to make sure that he could not get out under any circumstances. He stated that if this insect caught his attention, it would end badly for him. From that day on, rumors circulated that Mr. Tons had closed his shop and disappeared from Van Hell. The girl asked him if he was sure that he wasn't the one who scared Tons away. Renji said that maybe he was just bored of managing the shop. Giselle said that last time they even dismantled the merchandise, although it was because she didn't serve the customer well. And there is nothing wrong with things breaking while doing business in the area. But the lady had no customers who broke the merchandise. Brown said it was a dry goods store approved by Wayne. No one will destroy such a place, even if the rest of the shops are unlicensed. The blonde thought that in such a place, they received the personal approval of the boss, and he really is the closest person. Suddenly, the blue-eyed girl said she wanted to ask something. Yesterday, she accidentally overheard rumors about him that he controls the keys to the safe, and that he frequently visits the leader's mansion. The boss replied that he sometimes looks there. Giselle thought the man was too carefree, but he lives in the boss's house. But the boy denied it because he has his own mansion. By the way, Renji suggested that the girl go to work from home. The girl didn't understand this sentence, thinking she had hearing problems, or so it seemed to her. He smiled and said she could go to work from his mansion. Giselle was extremely surprised that her boss had offered her to live together. Renji saw no problem with this, but they were because, according to the lady, an adult man and woman in the same house is too much. The man admitted that he saw a poisonous spider in Tun's shop, the one that bit the girl. Obviously, Giselle was his target, and since this happened, the girl should be more careful in the future. During working hours, next to Gilberton and other boys, but someone could break into the bedroom at night. These people are not even afraid of Wayne. The blonde said that it seemed better to her to change places to spend the night, as the boss said. In the room, when the owner left, the butterflies tried to convince the lady that the gentleman's mansion was very cozy and elegant. She realized that they were silently trying to convince her to move to the mansion. But suddenly, the girl was informed that the protection magic had broken. The pets screamed at the girl to hide because someone had broken into the shop. The girl immediately ran under the bed, while the unknown silhouette looked to see if anyone was in the shop. There was a light mage in the shop who saw butterflies spraying poisonous pollen. The blue-eyed girl understood that she could not make any sound. The butterflies were attacked. Renji would find out and come soon. But suddenly, a girl looked under the same bed, blessing her with a crazy smile. The lady was very strong, so she started pulling the worker out from under the bed. Giselle said that the shop is currently closed, and unauthorized entry is considered trespassing. But at this, the white mage just laughed. He asked to consider her a friend who came to have fun, as they had met a couple of days ago. Losfin remembered that this lady was the one they had argued with that day. The stranger said that the blonde should not be afraid, because she could not kill her. She spent a lot of energy due to the magic at the entrance, because the boss installed strong magic in the form of protection. But suddenly, Giselle pushed the crazy woman into the abyss of shock, because she abruptly asked who she was. She was not talking about that girl, but about who controls her. The girl was surprised that her victim was so attentive. The white mage suggested that maybe the lady tried the forbidden technique, as she said, and therefore, the side effects appear in the form of character changes. The stranger shouted that Giselle should become such that someone would want to devour her. He could praise her for bringing Lua's Ben closer to Renji. The blonde screamed that it was nonsense and that she didn't understand what they were talking about. The crazy woman wanted the girl to become food for one person. Blue Eyes realized that the original Giselle had an inspiration, or someone else. That encouraged her to perform the forbidden technique. Therefore, the target of the forbidden technique, Renji. The crazy woman was surprised that the blonde was still alive, although everything here was full of poisonous dust. Suddenly, a voice belonging to Renji sounded quietly. Instantly, he threw the girl aside using magic. The girl, in tears, ran to the boss. She said that the butterflies had died a long time ago, and that the man had been walking for a long time. But she also thanked him for coming at least now. Suddenly, the man asked if what the lady Giselle Loisvin said was true. The brunette ordered that she shouldn't even imitate Giselle as a joke. To this, with her hand on her heart, the blonde declared that she was Giselle, who was an employee of the shop. The boss said that the girl was not trying to harm him, she was just buying time by talking. From the beginning, she came here to contact her. This lady is the one who initiated the forbidden technique with Giselle. The girl asked who she was, because she had just learned about some kind of technique. Most likely, Renji had been here for a long time and was just listening to the conversation. He remembered that the girl said she knew the future of important people and also asked to save her. The blonde realized that the gentleman was now doubting her. She knew that he thought the blue-eyed one was colluding with this stranger, and with the future that she knew would limit him. Losbin knows that in this situation it is easy to suspect her, but it really wasn't her. Due to the forbidden technique, she lost her memory and doesn't even understand what that girl was talking about. But Renji was sure that Giselle was just bait aimed at him. It seems that things did not go according to that man's plan. That man wanted the worker to do her original job perfectly. The employee does not know the reason why Losbin resorted to the forbidden technique. This was not mentioned in the book, nor was Renji, nor the light mage who provoked Giselle, because all this was not that important. She wondered if she had really read a book about this world, if this world would really follow its content. From the beginning, there was a woman who read a book. There were many questions, namely why the girl became Giselle Losbin. She added that maybe he doesn't believe her, but admits that in this situation she can be suspected. The girl literally cried, because she understood that she could not prove that she was faithful to the master. But the girl explained this by saying that she cries when she is angry and irritated. Both in the past and now, the blonde tried hard to give her all. She tried to adapt, and for some reason, not everything is always as simple as it seems. The man suddenly asked if the lady was really afraid of him, afraid that he would kill her, but she burst into tears, asking him that if he was going to kill her, it would be better without pain. But he replied that he was not going to do that. The boss said he had finished decorating the henhouse. He built her the largest and most beautiful henhouse in the world. The lady supposed that the red-eyed man saved her to find out what was behind it, about to counterattack, using her as bait. Now the gentleman understood what Giselle thought of him. He asked why the girl had so many wounds, since she doesn't even know how to use healing magic. Fortunately, that woman had no intention of killing. Otherwise, the blonde might have died. The man should check if this girl has anything dangerous, so he should stay behind. Obviously, at first he suspected the blue-eyed girl, but now for some reason he changed his mind. He wondered if it was because of her tears. If you think about it, his ambition immediately disappeared when she shed a tear. Suddenly, the worker asked if the boss thought her face was beautiful, but the man firmly stated that the lady was not particularly beautiful. Only her actions were beautiful. Renji also added that Giselle is especially ugly when she cries. Therefore, when she really wants to cry, she should cry only in front of him. After all, if something angers and irritates you, you don't need to hide, but do it. The brown-haired man will solve all problems, just so as not to see the ugly face. The girl instantly noticed that her body was burning, and that something incomprehensible was happening to her next to her owner. She asked what to do with the lying lady, and if they should take her to a hospital. To this, the man replied that she was dead, and had been dead from the beginning. He protected himself at the entrance with his body, and could not survive. It turns out that all this time, Losbin was talking to the corpse. The girl said she would immediately move home with her boss. Viviana's temporary treatment center. The heroine told someone that she should rest for a few days, and that her health would return to normal. Viviana was still busy saving the world. The girl was very happy to hear these words from her teacher. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, so the lady asked what had happened. The reason she came here is because she wonders if she went out with Renji after that day. But the redhead didn't even know where this man was or what he was doing. In fact, the professor seemed to know his location. He said that the little seed he had sown in the past had finally sprouted. The blonde explained that the greed of dark mages began to bring clouds to the world. To be able to drive them away, he planted a small seed among them. The girl was delighted that her mentor still cared about this world. If she had been able to repair her damaged skin that day, and if she had been able to restore her magical power, everything would have been different. But the man immediately declared that he survived only thanks to the main character. But another of his students lost their way forever. Renji was definitely allied with the dark mages, perhaps even getting close to Wayne Ire. The lady suggested that this required extraordinary skills. The master suggested that he most likely found a way. And if you think about the cruelty of the dark mages, then they could also use an inhuman form. And I also wonder if the cup is damaged, if it is possible to stay alive just continuously, absorbing magical power. If she had been able to survive by hunting the magical power of the mages, as they did to them that day, then there is no way Dylan wouldn't have been able to find the guy who became a serial killer. Or he could have found another way to do it. I don't know. I know. The girl, so that the mentor would calm down from such persuasions, offered to have tea. She also asked what kind of seed he planted with the dark mages, but he replied that the name of the seed is Giselle Lospin. If they find Giselle, they will be able to find Renji. Seeing the mage's mansion, the girl thought it was a short-term scenario. If this is Renji's mansion, then how big is Wayne's? But it turns out the boss himself gave him this house. He extended his hand to the lady, telling her that if she no longer doubted, she should follow him, and he would show her his mansion. Inside, everything was huge and looked very expensive. The man immediately said that there was no one in the house except the two of them. This was all because Renji doesn't trust people to let them into his house. This mansion is the safest place for him, and he will not allow anyone to live here except a lady. He said that Giselle was the first to visit this place, the first to enter this house and intend to live here. Losvin suddenly asked if by chance she was the housekeeper. After all, this is a part-time job, and you will have to sign a contract. But it was just a joke, because Giselle is here. Because if the enemy attacks, she will be able to react quickly. Suddenly, he asked if the lady liked flowers. After all, there is a large garden around the house that she could see. The girl didn't understand why Renji always said such misleading sentences lately. The man led her to the magic garden that the butterflies talked about. There was no need for servants in the mansion, because everything here is controlled by magic. The blonde asked if the boy uses so much magic, isn't it difficult for him? But if you immediately recover your magical power, there will be nothing difficult about it. This is possible because all the flowers in this garden are made of magic. The girl saw an empty vase and decided to pick a bouquet of wildflowers growing nearby. She handed the vase to the brown-haired man and told him they could put them in the room. He wanted to put it in his bedroom and ordered the lady to follow him. When asked why they were going to the bedroom, the boss replied that they usually sleep there, but that the bed has many uses. Suddenly, after saying this sentence, Renji asked why Giselle's face turned red. The mage just laughed and then said he just wanted to give a gift. Upon entering, the girl was surprised by the lack of furniture. There was no desk, no chair, nothing except a bed in the room. There were no photos or decorations either. A bedroom that looked gloomy and lonely. The lady asked why he had decorated the hallway so beautifully. But in the bedroom, there was only one bed. The man replied that he broke everything except the bed. He has too bad a temper, even though it was a long time ago. Even if it happens again, Giselle won't see it. Renji handed the lady the handkerchief they had soaked at his grandmother's house. You must use it when you go out somewhere, but not around your neck at home. The magic in the mansion got confused, and in the house, no one would find the lady. This is a secluded place that no one, except guests, can find. The house was also full of food and groceries. The boss himself is not ready. He bought all this yesterday, but before it was empty. The girl asked him what he had been eating all this time. Upon learning that the man ate little, she began to show him that food is an important part of life. But he explained that originally, the bodies of mages depended more on magical power. So food didn't matter. The girl didn't know how to cook, but she tried to make sure they could both eat one portion each. Renji wondered if Giselle was once again taking on something they hadn't even asked her to do. She doesn't rest, not even when she has the day off. The boss instantly snapped his fingers, and a small cook-like creature appeared. It was a golem, a cook who didn't need to be human. But the lady was only concerned that it was possible to abuse magic in that way. To this, he replied that this is possible here. There is a magic garden here. If it weren't for this place, the man would have died a long time ago or been crippled. Brown also warned that, when the girl went to work, Gilberton would be waiting at the entrance. They will live together, solve the work at home with the help of magic, and he will pick her up from work every day. Like a husband takes care of his wife. The girl simply said directly that she doesn't understand why they treat her so well. She said she knew the man was sure she wasn't the real Giselle Losvin. The blue-eyed girl asked if Renji considered her dangerous, and he answered positively. After all, whoever is in this body, he likes the one he now sees in front of him. This mansion, like a fortress, is no different from his will or his subconscious. That he welcomes her defenseless because she is dangerous, and even more dangerous than she thinks. The red-eyed man suggested that the lady go rest, because she still had to work tomorrow. When he said the girl was dangerous, was he referring to her, or was there another meaning? After the incident with the poisonous spider, it became scary to open the shop. Of course it's good that the three dark mages take turns staying at the shop. The boss must have asked them to do this, and he was probably annoyed by it. The butterflies asked not to take Xulian's medicine because her stomach would hurt a lot afterward. The boy was surprised that Giselle was talking to them, saying that you can't talk to them just by knowing the name, because she isn't even a mage. Losfin's physique must be favorable to mages. The doctor understood that he couldn't draw blood from her for study, because even if he accidentally hurt her, the boss would kill him. Giselle was not mistaken. Whether it's Xulian, Hilberton, or Vendrilla, the three of them are afraid of Renji. The girl suddenly asked if Renji ranked first among them, to which the boy replied yes, that's right, the boss is stronger than everyone. The blonde was surprised that her superiors ranked first. Xulian said that if it weren't for the antidote the dark-haired man gave him, he would have died. So he decided to help him in everything. This was strange because in the original story, the one who saved Xulian and received his loyalty was Wayne. The girl asked about the boy's envy because his director was close to Wayne Iyer, but she didn't understand why she should be jealous. She kept asking if Renji was more capable than Windria or Bedro. It was obvious because these two couldn't even compare to his little finger. But when the girl started asking about Wayne, the doctor said he suddenly had an urgent matter. The girl asked the butterflies if they could tell her about their boss. For example, what he does, his life story, and something like that. But they told Giselle to go ask him personally. Although they don't understand human relationships, the girl was the first one he invited to the mansion. And from the outside, it looks like they have a very close relationship. The man returned to the shop and asked if anything had happened while he was in the meeting. He started to say something, when suddenly the boss took her cheek and asked if she had always had double eyelids. The girl immediately started looking in the mirror to see what had changed. But suddenly, Renji took the mirror away and asked if she was done with her business at the shop. The blue leaf gave an affirmative answer and asked to look in the mirror. But the boss insisted that they go eat the prepared food. But suddenly, Bader immediately burst into the shop. Someone burst into the shop again and smashed the door. Giselle looked at the stranger and saw silver hair, an appearance that screamed that it was dangerous to touch this person. She immediately realized that, according to the description, the man resembled Wayne. So the man who thinks he is Wayne is calling Renji Supreme Lord. Furthermore, the man uses magic with ease. Besides having a bad relationship with the villain trio, he has a bad relationship with Dylan. Giselle got a headache and said she would go to her room, but he took her hand and told her she wasn't going anywhere. Wayne was surprised that Renji wanted to take a maniacal employee with him. The blonde didn't know where they were going, but she wanted to stay because she was useless anyway. Suddenly, Renji asked the lady if she liked Wayne. The brown-haired man ordered her to tell him her first impression directly, which was very cruel. Losbin realized that everyone thinks Wayne is the leader, but in reality Renji is the boss here. The girl didn't recognize the gray eminence, not even when he was next to her, and thought she was lucky not to have contacted him. But the novel said that the gray eminence is Wayne Eyre, a handsome man with silver hair. The red-eyed one said that now that the blonde knows everything, he simply cannot let her go. Before going where they wanted, the brown-haired man asked the lady to put something on. He handed her the robe. It was useless to run away, so it was worth staying close to him. The girl didn't understand how he could just enter the portal without knowing the destination. The man held out his hand and told her to hug him tightly. She thought for a minute that she was now connected to all the important people in the Poison Apple. The place was very strange. Everyone looked busy and angry. Wayne acted in public as if he were the boss, including his acting skills. He addressed a superior informally, and the girl thought that was impossible. The blonde asked to wait, because it seemed to her that these people needed help. While the dark mages were holding a meeting, they were attacked. They hurriedly threw the materials out of this place. No one knows who the boss really is, and she will have to pretend to be helping so as not to arouse suspicion. The boss immediately asked why the employee was not surprised by this situation, but she replied that she had recently experienced a shock. But in this situation, you cannot just stand there. You need to do something. The man simply destroyed the box and asked her to clean Mr. Wayne's office. The brown-haired man stepped forward and the girl tried to reach him, when suddenly they heard a strange sound. There were many doors in the mansion. The red-eyed man stopped abruptly in front of the wall. The cardinal's office could not be in a simple place, so the wall was just a defense. The blonde asked if she could burn all the documents here, but this is too much, because all this can be eliminated instantly with magic. He abruptly turned to the villain and asked what she thought and why he had brought her with him. It was just the intention to show what kind of person Renji is. The lady said before that she shouldn't go to big meetings, and she knows what those meetings will be like in the future. In the second part of the original work, a big encounter occurs where the main character meets the main character and the dark side. It was a massacre carried out in the city center. Thanks to Wayne's powerful magic, Dylan Stacy always fails. The boss sat the girl behind a chair and asked her to watch. She asked him what she should look at, but he replied that there would be something interesting now. The man created a magic circle on the floor. His hair began to turn silver, and he asked her how she was. The mage said that now his silver hair is beautiful and shiny. The blonde realized how wonderful Renji was at destroying the country. He is also very handsome with dark hair, but silver hair couldn't be more perfect. Vivian has vision problems if she could choose Dylan when such a cute villain exists. The man repeated his question, to which he received an answer of admiration. The girl couldn't find words to describe how much she liked the master's new appearance. The blonde said that they had finished their business and could return. The strange thing was that he came here only to show this magic and get rid of the documents. Well, or there was another reason. In such a short time, Renji managed to surround the entire place with a barrier. Surprisingly, they maintain order well in this world. But the lady was already waiting for Bedro and Reggie, who suddenly opened a portal. It was a direct abuse of power, although no one will know. The man leaned close to the girl's ear and whispered to her to take care of the master. Dylan was angry because there was only a little more time left, and he would have broken this damn barrier. He thought it was Wayne's doing, if not him. Then such a strong barrier could not have been created in such a short time. A power that several dozen light mages cannot handle. Dark mages tend to have vain ambitions when they are greatly surpassed, and Renji, of course, is the same. Suddenly, a boy ran up to the blonde with an important letter. It was most likely from Vivian. The conquest took longer than expected. The lady wrote that a long time had passed, and she was starting to worry, hoping he would return unharmed. She conveyed that the mentor provided information that Renji was with Giselle. The hero realized that then, in the carriage, that magic did not appear to him. At first, he thought the magic was familiar to him. It was Renji, a traitor who was jealous of Vivian's and the mentor's magic, so he took everything from the mentor. They can no longer stand still and watch the dark mages steal other people's magical power. The mentor, who has not yet recovered from his injury, must have returned to put order in this chaotic world. The man asked to prepare to activate the tracking technology. He wanted to find a trace of the world's order and his past. Giselle felt very tired because she had gone through several portals. She wondered if the master's hair would be the same. The blonde was worried if Renji used so much magic. Could he do magic? She noticed that he was in a bad mood. The girl assumed that her boss was very tired. The blue-eyed woman suggested that he rest, when suddenly she grabbed his chest. A couple of moments, and Losvin sees her boss lying in the magic garden. As if unconscious, Giselle immediately ran to his side and asked if he was okay. She wanted to take him to the room, but he said that if he stayed surrounded by magic flowers, everything would disappear. But the girl started screaming because she couldn't leave her sick master here. The man said everything was fine and immediately fainted. The butterflies said that anyway, no one could come here, and that the owner should be moved to the center of the garden. His magic is unstable now, and that's why he must rest in a place full of magic. Not for nothing, the blonde thought he was using too much magic. He shouldn't have abused it like that. The hair color also changed because he used a lot of magic. Milady carried the boss to the center of the garden. The butterflies suddenly started arguing about why the man called them if there was no danger. Because he called them, his recovery would be even slower, and they blamed Giselle for this. After all, lately, the master has been calling them because of her, and even calls them when his magic is unstable. The lady leaned down, because for her to clarify this situation, if he suddenly fainted, she would be confused. Suddenly, the girl noticed that magic was emanating from the flowers. She realized that her body was absorbing the magic emanating from the flowers, and so she was being restored. The butterflies said that the blonde should leave, and from now on, only they would protect the owner. But it was strange for her to leave a person in trouble. This incident was not the first, as he always lay down in the garden and came back. The girl asked if this happens to the boss often. Usually, if a mage uses a lot of magic, this happens to him. But a man doesn't always ask for pets, and it's hard to know everything. The butterflies suddenly horrified the lady, saying that Renji would soon get up, and he would go punish the traitors. The blue leaf started begging them to tell her everything, but they couldn't say what injuries Renji had inside him. The girl decided not to worry, because no matter how worried she was, nothing would change. She didn't know if her pain was really worth anything. Yesterday, when we got to the garden, he woke up alone. The red-eyed man had a white towel on his forehead, and his hair had returned to normal. When the lady saw that the master had woken up, she became very happy. To start with, I brought some soup and invited him to eat. Suddenly, everything fell from her hands, but Renji helped her with the help of magic. Jaisel was very angry about this, because the boss used magical power again, preventing it from falling. The ruler was surprised that my lady did not listen to the butterflies when they told her that they could simply leave him in the garden. Jaisel reported that fainting after using magic is not normal. Lospin was much more attentive than he thought. Or is there something he wants to receive in return for his affection? The girl reminded the knight that she was able to enter the mansion because he trusted her. But it was strange that the man didn't expect even this from her. Red-eyed said that this is faith, feelings, and that she should not respond to faith. And expecting nothing is very natural. Hearing this, the girl said she understood Renji's feelings, but she didn't even understand why the lady suddenly got angry. She explained this by saying that it is no big deal to treat them as if they were special, deceiving them and then looking at them as if expecting nothing when it matters most. But Renji still didn't understand the reason. The worker looked away and stated that she had feelings, and she behaves this way because she has developed feelings for her boss. She also added that it would be good if her answer was helpful. Jaisel announced that she would go to her room, but Renji also had something to say. He sat her down in front of him and asked if she had slept at all. These were the knight's assumptions, based on the bruises under her eyes. The mage asked Losvin to sleep quickly. He used magic to make the girl fall asleep faster. It had been a long time since Renji had forgotten these things. In an instant, the brown-haired man noticed that light began to emanate from the place that had lost its magic. Although it should collapse and be dragged to the ground, this happens for the first time in a long time that the red-eyed one lives here. Jaisel was not a mage and had no magical powers. She thought that the one sleeping in his arms was a very interesting creature. Without fully knowing the structure of the mansion, she gathered many things and tried to take care of her. And she said things that if someone heard them, they wouldn't get into trouble. In that case, it would be worth responding to his confession. The blonde woke up in a warm bed. Her boss received her and prepared dinner for her. The man began to worry that the lady had been sleeping for a long time and might be hungry. The girl began to eat, sitting at the table and crossing her hands. The brown-haired man said that now the girl looks more like Jaisel. Suddenly, the golem presented the lady with meat, which was quite tasty. It turned out that Losvin gave the cook a name, or rather, a number. Ranji suddenly asked if Jaisel was a spirit. This assumption was because she wouldn't die if she took poison. She could taste poisons. And she knew the future. And in general, the girl did not look like an ordinary person. Furthermore, something unusual happened after the employee appeared. Little by little, the boss developed a pure interest in her. The blonde immediately realized that this was an ambiguous phrase. He was very interested in her being, to which she replied that Jaisel had simply gone crazy. The man began to wonder what the girl was like and what she was doing in his world. He wanted to know everything from the beginning. This phrase also sounded ambiguous, but she perceived it normally, but any girl definitely would. In this case, to be fair, the boss should also talk about himself. She is also interested in many things about him. It seems he has forgotten, but just yesterday, she found out who he really is. It was very difficult for a dark mage to tell the whole truth, but the lady was very surprised and delighted when she received consent. The man said that if this is a manifestation of his interest, then as much as necessary. Renji sounded like he was flirting. He agreed to answer all questions if she answered all of his. The lady was curious to know what happened to Renji in the past. When dark magic appeared, the boy was only 8 years old. He was a child whose soul was devoured by the devil, and they decided to kill him before he became a dark mage. His own father attacked him with a sword, but the magic radiating from the boy was stronger than that of those warriors. In that state, the guy escaped and was immediately marked for destruction. The girl said tearfully that everyone was cruel if they wanted to kill the child. This was not mentioned in the novel. With such a past, it is no wonder he became a villain. Maybe the boss hurt himself while escaping and was in bad shape. That's why he fainted like that after using magic. She reminded the brown-haired man that he lost consciousness yesterday. The man said that the changes in his body occurred later, after receiving help from the Archmage and his students. The girl remembered that it was Vivian's and Dylan's turn. And then the master said that they would stop talking about him here. And it was Giselle's turn. The blue-eyed one said she knows what happened and that she was called. She found out thanks to him. But the boy was not interested in what happened after his death. Ranji talked about what happened to him in the action and would like to know the same about Giselle. The brown-haired man should have known under what circumstances the lady became Lospin, as well as her ability to poison. But he would like to know about her himself. There was no need to talk about Giselle. The man wants to know what she was like in the past world. In the past, the girl was always an ordinary person. She had no talents or skills. She was an ordinary person. In this case, Renji wanted to know about her as an ordinary person. He said he was interested in the girl. The girl said that the owner's words could be understood in a completely different way, and that if someone heard them, they would definitely misunderstand. But she didn't even understand how someone could misunderstand the words that he was interested in her. Giselle was embarrassed to talk, but she said that the day had come when she said these words with her lips. Even if they made fun of her for being too shy, there was nothing she could do about it. Having said all these words, the lady lowered her head, anticipating new jokes, when suddenly she saw the look of surprise on the knight's face. She couldn't even think that the man meant the same thing as her. The girl admitted that at first she didn't think he was interested in her in this way, because she thought he liked Viviana. This turned out to be nonsense, because she is involved in the future that Giselle talked about. Therefore, the blonde thought that he was not in love with the main character and hated Dylan. Judging by his disgust, it was true that this novel continued to fall apart. In truth, in the place where the lady lived, there was a prophecy about this world, in which the future of some people was described, and it was said that Renji was secretly in love with Vivian, and he was at odds with Dylan. It was just a fairy tale, but some details matched. The brown-haired man said offendedly that he had never been interested in the main character. So the dark mage, who in the original is in love with Vivian, fell in love with Giselle. It means that the blue-eyed one will play the role of the main character. The lady literally burst into tears, thinking that the boss would now want to lock her in a dark room, where light does not penetrate, and he would visit her in the morning or evening. If you think about it, the book was for adults, and the girl really didn't want to live like that. But Renji thought that it was the lady who had such preferences. The prophecy said that he did this to Vivian, but the man never did and did not plan to do so in the future. The blonde realized that the Renji she knows is kinder than he appears, and more caring. Suddenly, the mage asked if the employee would be with him, even if he didn't have to go through all this trouble. It was a strong impudence, to which Giselle replied that she was not that frivolous. From the beginning, due to the forbidden technique aimed at him, the lady was summoned. Whether the blonde knows it or not, they are connected. Furthermore, she said that to live as Giselle, she would become the subordinate of the most powerful villain. And moreover, this powerful villain has a great interest in her. The blue leaf realized that it was so logical that she gave in. But in any case, Losvin does not initiate relationships in the workplace. He said that he could fire her and leave her in the basement of the mansion until their relationship became as he would like. But he will not do it because he really does not want to. The lady will be by his side anyway, and from the beginning until he talked about the relationship, he didn't even think about it. The worker apologized for going too far. The girl realized that her life not only stank, but was a complete failure when a doctor approached her, and she asked him how he felt. He asked her for a small drop of blood, to which she agreed, half asleep. Gilberton shouted that Zulian should not be given blood without thinking. Vendrilla asked what Giselle was thinking, to which she told him that she had a serious problem. She said that her friend was appreciated by a superior at work, and the friend was confused because, although the superior was handsome, he had problems with his character, but he still treated her well, even before telling her about his interest. For her information, she added that due to her profession, she has a high probability of premature death. She is sick of this handsome, bad-tempered superior man, because those around him are afraid of him, and that she has a high chance of dying prematurely. The doctor said that if you like someone very much, then you like them. If you don't like them, then you don't like them. Suddenly, the brunette noticed that all the conditions listed by Giselle seemed very familiar to her. They started discussing whether this situation with Giselle was true, to which she replied that Mr. Renji told Gilberton to see him, and Zulian today has the only scheduled patient this month. They ran away, saying they would pray for their friend. Vindria suddenly asked if the girl really disliked Mr. Renji very much. She was burned by the fact that the lady had no friends. The woman stated that everyone who knows Renji knows that he is interested in her. She said there was no need to worry, because it was good to be close to the head. And use him. After all, he doesn't ask you for anything special, but he will give you everything you want. This man resisted even talking to the girl. Maybe he himself doesn't know what he wants. The redhead said that dark mages are far from relationships. For them, there is enough entertainment in life, thanks to dark magic. She also added that she got into this field not long ago, so she enjoyed everything she could. And she has no regrets, and is simply investigating. Suddenly, Ten entered the shop, and Vendrilla asked what had happened to him. But he said that the atmosphere outside, the darkness was strange. Looking out the window, the woman ordered the shop doors to be closed immediately.